And we're live. And we're live. Yeah. Okay, this
Boom.
is a mulligan. This is a total mulligan from last week. This is great. Okay, folks, everybody tuning in. This is going to be a bit of an unusual stream, or whatever. It is. I don't know if I do a usual stream. I do stuff that's all over the place, but I wanted to do a mulligan because I was such an asshole last week with giving Elliot the wrong link to join. And this isn't like, oh, I'll have you on again for that reason. No, actually, I invited Elliot on and Wyatt Claypool. He'll be on in just a minute here, but because we wanted to talk about this whole trade extravaganza that we've been having this week with the Canadian government and the U.S. government. So everybody, welcome to the show. Elliot Daigneault. Am I saying that right?
Daigneault.
Daigneault.
That was pretty good.
I'm trying. It's with all the letters, man. Spell it for me.
Yeah, it's Daigneault. It's an exercise of the French grammar rules. There's like 3 different grammar rules in my name.
I think that's an exercise in English patience, I think is what it is.
Could be as well.
I mean, we're patient enough to deal with the crappy spellings or whatever it is that you guys do. But yeah, I can never pronounce any of this stuff. So give me a break if I ever get this stuff wrong. And I want to also welcome to the show. You guys know him. Everybody knows him in these circles. Wyatt Claypool, welcome to the show.
Hey, I showed up here with an easier to pronounce last name, unlike this frog over here.
Yes.
right with the jabs. Jeez.
Right
I come in
gates.
peace, Wyatt.
I just got finished filming another video, so I was kind of still hot for a second there.
You're
You're hot off the press. Okay, I think I might, other than the audience, be the only one drinking tonight. Even though we've been talking about American alcohol, I actually have some.
Cup.
I don't know what's in the mystery cup. Yeah. I never took you for a big drinker, but yeah. Is that something that you do in your past time?
Yeah, actually it's Bushmills, but I put it in this cup to be family friendly.
Oh, fair enough. So one of the big topics, we're going to get into this, is American alcohol finally being able to hit the Canadian store shelves. We will get into that, but I want to address the chat so far tonight. Ladies and gents, we will be addressing the chat. So I know that when I have guests on, it gets a little sparse on addressing the chat, but this is something I'm going to challenge myself to, is actually bringing you guys into the fold when it comes to having this discussion tonight, because I don't want to leave people behind, but I still want to have this awesome discussion because these are two guys that I think have been on the right side of the aisle on this one, especially during this whole trade. What would you call this? A faff? Like a big tiff that Canada decided to have with the United States. I don't think it was an American thing. What do you think, Wyatt?
Well, of course the Americans are involved. The initial tariffs hit. That always sucks. I'm a free trade guy. I don't like tariffs, but it seems like from the very start of this, for a year and a half, the only thing that seemed relevant to any of our politicians or media was that, Trump bad, he did this, that's bad. And it's like, okay, that's a super low resolution way of looking at it. Like from the Canadian side, at least for the way that the Liberals have handled this, it's like a 1.5 year long failed marketing scheme. It got them back into office, but they overpromised so much to the point where it was never going to work, and there was nothing ever behind it. It was just marketing at the end of the day, that we were going to be like elbows up and fight back, and we didn't really know what that meant, which is why we're here a year and a half later, exactly where we were when this was deemed to be a big problem during the federal election.
So I'm on the American side of things, and I always have been, by the way, for people that are tuning in that are calling me a traitor and all this stuff. So I've grown up in border towns my whole life. My dad's American, my mom's Scottish, and emigrated to Canada when she was very little. And I was born in Canada to mixed family. And I see things from both sides of the aisle, but I do also see how cruel Canadians can be when they find out you're American. And this has been a long ongoing thing. And I wanted to get your perspective, Elliot, on how has this gone on? Because you're also sort of mixed culture. You've been all over Canada, but you are from Quebec and the French side of things. So like it seems like another culture all on its own. How did they take this whole trade situation?
Well, it is a different culture, right? A nation within a nation, as Harper said once upon a time. There is no province that is more anti-Trump and anti-American than the province of Quebec, which I find so odd because there is a separatist movement. It's growing. There's an election coming up in October, and it's effectively a makeshift referendum on separation once again. The Separatist Party is leading in the polls. And I see this as an opportunity, not that I believe, and we spoke about this last stream, but I don't believe Quebec could survive on its own as a sovereign nation. However, there is an opportunity to actually cozy up with Trump and the Americans, a bit like what Alberta has been doing. They've been having very informal talks. But nonetheless, this anti-American sentiment that is espoused here, I think, is self-defeating, not only for Canada as a whole, as a federation, but also for the separatists here in Quebec. But it's so deep. It's so deep. It's the province where, for a while, if you were driving a Tesla, you were in trouble, especially when Elon was with Doge. Oh, yes. And I've seen it. I've seen Teslas be vandalized here. It's disgusting. So, yeah, no other place in Canada right now is probably, aside from maybe, I don't know, Halifax, which is super duper liberal, but Quebec's a bad place to be if you're an American at heart.
Well, it's funny you bring up the Alberta situation and why it's not very, he can get in on this. He's not very supportive of the independence movement, but not to this degree, to like slander these people, you know what I mean? Wyatt wouldn't say this kind of thing. This is coming out of the Toronto Star today. Research suggests Kremlin-backed content farms and popular American influencers are increasingly flooding social media with content boosting the Alberta separatist movement, trying to do this Russiagate thing all over again and trying to blow it out of proportion in order to, in a roundabout slander these people. But
I find the American influencer part so perplexing there. Like, okay, there's the Kremlin thing. If the Kremlin's doing anything, okay, bad. I really doubt anything they'd be doing is having an impact at all. But like American influencers, like what are you talking about? That American podcasters make videos on the topic because it's compelling news? That's literally all they're describing. Is it Canadian interference of Canadian legacy media outlets and commentators talk about things going on in the United States? But like, it's just inherently like sinister because Americans are involved.
That's absolutely fair to say. I mean, at this point, I'm an American influencer, and I have no ties to Russia, despite what you might have heard. That's
something a Russian asset would say.
Exactly. That's oh my goodness. I didn't get those secret emails or whatever.
This reminds me, one of the only silver linings to the Canadian side of the trade deal, because we scuffed the entire negotiation. The one part that's good is something we didn't want, but Trump is forcing us to take, which is removing Bill C-18. Like, my goodness, the man is doing more for media freedom for Canadian creators and the news than Mark Carney is. I mean, there's all these people freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness, I literally saw this guy, and I've seen multiple people argue this, so it's not even just a fringe view. It was one thing to have tariffs on our steel and aluminum, but now they're attacking our digital sovereignty. It's like, oh wow, yeah, I can't believe they're attacking our ability to censor our own citizens.
Well, it's a little bit like the alcohol ban too. Look, if you want to boycott American alcohol, go balls out. Like it's your decision to make, but it's self-imposed by the government right now that we can't have American alcohol. I don't think there's any population in the world that loves censorship, control, and being told what to do more than half of the population of Canada.
The govern me harder daddy class of citizens. Yeah, I have to tell my audience this constantly because I think one of the things as a commentator you have to take for granted is that everybody watching knows all the details of the things that you're talking about. So you have to step back and you have to say, okay, I have to explain this. So especially for the American audience that watches the channel, the government runs alcohol sales in a large portion of Canada. It's the default in Ontario. Like Ontario, it's the government.
To the point where like premiers and provinces where it's controlled were perplexed that Alberta and Saskatchewan wouldn't do it.
Yes.
It's just considered the norm elsewhere. Like, why aren't you controlling the market completely? What the heck,
Because
Daniel?
well, culturally, and that's the crazy thing, and I think this is why Alberta and Saskatchewan have a different culture from the rest of Canada, and even from British Columbia, right? British Columbia is full of commies. I'm just gonna tell you straight up. I mean, yeah, like you'll get a lot of people, and they say, in rural sections of British Columbia, yeah, very conservative people, but then when you actually get talking to people, some of their ideas are not that very not at least not as a Texan, or like in Texas you talk to conservatives and you say, well, do you know that conservatives in Canada are pretty keen on socialized medicine, they just hope it would be better. Are you kidding me? What the heck? You know what I mean? That's the reaction down here. They wouldn't think that. There is definitely more of a free market approach to things in places like Alberta, Saskatchewan. But Quebec is probably the furthest gone, right? They've fully swallowed the blue pill, right?
Oh, they took a double dose of blue pill, actually, and like you said, we have our own version of the LCBO here. It's called the SAQ, except it's even more expensive because taxes and duties on alcohol are even higher. A lot of people in Quebec,
really,
if they live near the Ontario border, it's just so advantageous to drive to the LCBO and buy your booze over there.
Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, big time.
What? You telling me that people in Quebec, they drive to Ontario to buy cheaper alcohol?
Not only that, see, I'm in Montreal, but I'm in the West Island of Montreal. So Hawkesbury, which is the closest general hospital in Ontario from where I am, about 45 minutes away. Most people here, they drive to Hawkesbury for medical care if they need it. Instead of going to, it's called the Lakeshore General Hospital. It's here. It's in the West Island of Montreal. We don't even go there. We go to Ontario instead.
Okay, that blows my mind. Holy cow.
And people will live with crap like this, and you'll still have polls out there saying like 89% of Canadians are proud of our universal healthcare system. And it's like, my goodness, like, yeah, if you asked people in the Soviet Union if they were proud of their, they were proud of how hardworking their country is and how their economy is being run, you'd probably get just ridiculous approval ratings in like the 1970s and 80s when people didn't even know how good it was elsewhere.
That is the crux of it.
Bubble.
That's the crux of it. So when Yeltsin went to America to do a tour of America, and what did they do? They brought him in. They brought him to Texas, and they drive him to all these places around Texas because America is like, wow, check it out. We've got rockets. We're going to the moon. We're going to do all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, we do that too, right? We do rockets. We do this stuff. He's like, can we make a pit stop over here? I just want to check something out. They go to a grocery store, and the guy loses his mind. He's like, what? This is what's available to the average American citizen? That is nuts. If the Soviet people knew about this, they would be done with socialism today.
Yeah, and I believe that the anecdote was that he was specifically marveled by the amount of different varieties of Jello pops there were.
Yeah, trivial like snacks,
well,
not only just
that's
staples.
Amazing, because in the Soviet Union, it's crazy that they were able to have one dessert type item available in their state-run stores. And so the fact that there's a frivolous item and you can buy more versions of that frivolous item than probably there were varieties of meat and vegetable options combined in that Soviet grocery store is genuinely more incredible than a rocket. Because a rocket, what do you need? You need like 1,000 people on a team working over several years. Okay, it's 1,000 people. They're smart. Figure it out. It's harder when you're being able to provide anything that pretty much anyone would want in their normal day-to-day life to hundreds of millions of people.
Oh, exactly.
Well, Toronto's going to figure it out real soon, right? With their government-run grocery stores, the initiative they want to do.
Wait, Toronto's putting that along. That's a Toronto initiative? I haven't heard of this.
It's funny. Every time like a Canadian progressive gets out-progressived by someone in the United States, like Zoran Mamdani, then we're like, oh my goodness, we're off on our game. And then we just do something extremely stupid in the aftermath of it to prove that we're still there. We're still number one in the stupidity game.
So is this Olivia Chow that's making this happen? Or is this like a... Is this a good,
oh my god, I lost that.
Yeah, or is this a concerted effort from the province to make this happen in Toronto?
From what I gather, it's Orivia. And here's the funny thing. They came out this week, and again, this is not confirmed in any way, shape, or form, but they're saying, well, we're going to start subsidizing the private grocery stores in order for them to somewhat compete with the government-run socialist grocery stores.
Oh, oh my
You
goodness!
talk
Oh
about
my goodness!
stupidity.
Vicious cycle. I hardly know her.
Yeah.
So then they'll subsidize those, but then those will be deemed too expensive. And then they'll have to subsidize the government-run grocery stores more.
So I got a couple of clips here I want to get into and get your reactions from it. But before we do that, little tip of the hat to the audience. We've got Angela Wing. She's member for 32 months. This is a very long time. Thank you so much, Angela. She says, "Are Canadians honestly ready for an election?" In my opinion, I don't think so. What do you guys think?
Yeah, as it stands right now, look, it's hard to judge the polls. I have issues with the pollsters, their methodology, and just the questions they use. But it seems like right now the Liberals would come in again. And so I don't know. I would love an election just because, yeah.
Now, it does depend on what polls you look at, because to say you believe polls is to also say you don't believe other polls. Because when Research Co says plus 20 Liberal and Angus Reid says plus 4 and Abacus says plus 7, one set of the polls has to be wrong. I always think that something incredible has to happen for you to be leading by that much, and I don't think that we're in a position where if there was an election happening today, Carney would probably win a majority. He's ahead by 5, 6, 7%. That's easily enough for a majority. But I'm actually helping run a poll with Polywave and Shreya Teest, and we're running substantial polls in all 3 by-elections, so like 500 people in each of the by-elections. And the interesting thing, though, is that the Liberals in North Vancouver Capilano are actually heavily down. They're heavily down in Beaches, East York. They're not going to lose, but the thing is that they've gone from winning those ridings by like 26% down to potentially like 10 or like 7. And if that trend starts up in some of the swing ridings, I think in maybe 6 months, a year's time, we're in a more realistic we're in a more realistic range to actually for both parties to be competitive in the election again. And so I think that's good to see. I think the Conservatives will lose Chicoutimi, though, because Richard Martel just walking out on the party. Which voters want to return to vote in another Conservative after the last guy left for arbitrary reasons, and it was already a super tight riding. But that's for another day.
The thing, though, with Chicoutimi, it's a industrial power. It's really weird because it's rural-ish. It's not like a main city like Montreal or Quebec City would be. But yet their industrial might punches way above their weight as a secondary, even a third-level city. And personally, and again, look, it is a tight riding, but the tariffs are not helping the Liberals. Not that they were going to win in that riding anyways.
And by the way, the poll we're running seems to indicate that technically the Liberals are ahead in our poll, but that's just because the people who were firmly Liberal are still firmly Liberal. A lot of Conservatives are leaving and moving towards the Bloc, who are probably going to take the seat, because the ridings almost become, who do you trust more on trade? Provincial government or federal government? And provincial government trusting, elbows up voters go Bloc, and those who are saying, no, I still believe Mark Carney no matter what, are going to stick Liberal. And then people pissed off with Richard Martel are going to go vote Bloc.
Well, actually, at that point, because there's so many lunatics out there, and I'm serious when I say lunatics. I think a lot of people have been they've been duped by this propaganda, and they really want this fight. In fact, so much so that the CBC and all these propaganda outlets have been reeling it back. They'd taken the hamster, turned it around, and said, "Run the other way now." Can you get the people unpropagandized so that we can have a trade deal? Because what was it? The Globe and Mail just made an article about a week and a half ago saying, we need to really kind of put our elbows down now, but it looks like the Canadian people are up for a fight. So they've riled these people up. Pundits are even saying this. People are riled up. They want this fight, but maybe that's not the place to go. So as Carney's reeling it all back, and Carney is saying, we shut up. I need to make a deal here. I think a lot of these citizens in Canada are falling for the premiers, because the premiers they're not backing down, even though they're completely out to lunch.
Down, but it's really awkward because the premiers themselves are the ones who engaged in like the hottest rhetoric. Like Wab Canoe is still saying, "Oh, okay, I'll put booze back on the shelves," but nobody buy it. And he's such a coward because it's so easy to badmouth Donald Trump in Manitoba. It's hard when you're actually, having to stand up to the prime minister saying, hey, this is a bad deal. Because if I was a premier, I'd be saying, actually, this is a bad deal. Don't sign it. Let's take 50% more tariffs on some other stuff. We should have had a deal like flipping like a year and a half ago. But you don't sign some piece of garbage just because he rushes you. Now, again, that's no excuse for taking this long. But that's the funny thing. Carney is doing like the exact thing he said you shouldn't do. I'm not going to be rushed into a bad deal. I'm not going to take a deal that's going to leave like large tariffs in place. He's like every single point that he basically implied to be laying out for what's a good deal, he's completely breaking. And all these premiers, although they think they're tough by like taking shots at Trump, taking jabs at Trump, they're such cowards. They will not call up Mark Carney saying, I can't do this. This is bad.
Very true.
I'm going to because it's the worst part of it. This is actually where America comes out on top. Tariffs are usually bad for your economy, and they're probably still bad for the American economy to have tariffs on because, it reduces, choice in the free market. The problem is the reason America is so advantaged is we're going to accept tariffs on our economy, and then they can trade freely into Canada, which means that Canadian firms are completely disadvantaged.
Which is actually the other way that it's been for, I think, about 80 years now. So, I mean...
On dairy and supply management, absolutely, yeah. Which is why it was so hypocritical when we were like surprised Pikachu at the fact that they eventually tariffed us on some stuff.
Well, some of the reasons behind why America was okay with these tariffs in the first place was after the Second World War, most of Europe was disheveled. It was torn apart. And so America was like, okay, we'll give you some time. We'll give you a bit of time. It will allow you to freely trade with us, and basically took down the Monroe Doctrine, the thing that really helped build the industrial base in America, and then it just never went away. And these economies they built up, and they created their own trade barriers with American companies entering their space, but America never relinquished this open deal for everybody, and Canada was included in that deal. And I think Trump coming in and reasserting this Monroe Doctrine has really been a wake-up call to a lot of countries. In Canada, it wasn't a wake-up call. It was a reason for a hissy fit. I mean, here's the clip of Wob Canoe. This is just absurd that this guy he holds a public office, but here's what he had to say just yesterday.
You were brief, but I mean, what were you told? You must have asked.
I was told by the Prime Minister that he wants us to put the booze back on the shelves.
Without giving you details?
They gave us some details, and other stuff they said they're still nailing down. So I wouldn't say that he was begging us, but what is a step before begging? So I get it from his perspective. Why does he want us to take the booze off the shelves? He's the one who got on the phone with Donald Trump, which, I don't think any of us want to be on the phone with Trump or in a photo with him. But there you go. Somebody has to do it. Thank you, Mark Carney, for doing it. And you can understand he got to a place where he can recommend a deal to Canadians. But I think for the rest of us, okay.
So, like, people say that Donald Trump is a blowhard, but I mean, there's nothing more blowhard than that. Like, nothing to back it up. Just a guy who's given a little bit of power, and he's used basically the extent of his power against the United States that he possibly can. Of course, not taking any personal hits. It's all hits through the economy. But same thing with Doug Ford, same thing with David Eby. What are you supposed to do with these people?
The real Elvis Presley has been seen more times in the past 48 hours than Doug Ford. That guy is just avoiding all cameras to make sure that he's not asked about what he thinks about the trade agreement. Now, Wob Canoe's kind of being a twit where he won't come out right out and just say it's a bad deal. He's kind of acting like, I don't want to do this. Like, but you're going to do it anyway, so shut the hell up and stop acting like, oh my goodness, I got no choice. I thought you're Mr. Tough Guy over here. Like, Wob Canoe's coming out and like revealing that like the prime minister basically had to like tell him, just do it, please do it. And he basically he shows all of the cards that Carney basically didn't give him a very detailed reason of why the deal is good and you should put booze back on the shelves. He basically said, trust me, bro. And it's like, that's not a good sign, because you think you would want to tell him about all the great stuff that we're going to get if you put the booze back on the shelves. He's basically saying, there's some good stuff. I'll tell you about it, but first you have to do everything I want.
So I'm I'm gonna say to Canadians, any recommendations that people might have to buy some American booze. Hopefully, this stuff makes it up to you guys, because this is the greatest stuff ever. This is Carbatch ranch water, hard seltzers. Get yourself some of this prickly pear. I don't know if you've ever had a prickly pear. Have either of you guys ever had a prickly pear before?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Never.
It's a
Really good.
strange fruit. It is a strange fruit. I have one of them right here. This comes off the top of a cactus. It just grows on the end of a cactus. And
Yeah,
you
like
just-
they're red. They're red and they're like not bitter or anything, but they're also not sweet. They're kind of nice.
well, these are the green ones. You can get them in red and green, and they
No,
have
but
a lot of
the
seeds
fruit
in them.
flesh is the fruit flesh is usually red inside.
No, these are green inside, but they.
Okay, never mind. Then I don't know what I'm talking about. Well,
No. When I drive down the street, I see them. They're everywhere, man. Just most people don't pick them because they're like, you gotta get all the thorns off of them and stuff. But yeah, they're really nice. Taste like a pear. But anyway, prickly pear, so waters. But Elliot, you just did a video recently, and you're calling them out on this because so many people are like saying, "I'm gonna boycott American booze," nonetheless. Even though they're gonna take it off they're gonna put it back on the shelves, which I don't know how much of a hurry they are in doing that. But there are people calling for an actual boycott. And you put out a video, went pretty viral. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I said, and I'm. This is not the official announcement. I've officially announced it before, but I'm boycotting their boycott. So I've said for every bottle of American liquor a liberal Canadian is not drinking, I'll be drinking 3. The first one is my portion. The second one is a portion for them, negating their boycott. And the third one is just to spite them. So I'm saying everyone join in on this and show the liberals they ain't going to be working at all. Honestly, I think there's going to be a bounce back for American liquor. So from the words I'm seeing, from the comments I'm seeing, and sure, my following is biased. It's, people on the right. But nonetheless, there's this pent up demand for American liquor. Some people would go to the US and bring it back. Some people would go to Alberta to bring some back to their province. It's a little bit like during the Rona days. Right after, when you could travel, there was a massive bounce back for the travel. So I think we're going to see something similar, but with American alcohol.
You know what's funny is in British Columbia, because I was still living there during this whole ban thing, and the first thing that they did in the liquor stores, by decree from David Eby, from the top of the communist ladder of how things work in Canada, they put drapes over it. They actually came out with cloths, cloths over, and said these items are not for sale, and then put a sign over it until the evenings when the union workers that can't do any shelf work during the day apparently came in the evenings and took everything off the shelf and send it off into storage, which apparently, like in Ontario, costs a bunch of money. I haven't got any of the figures from British Columbia, but so there's 2 things in British Columbia. You have it's not like Ontario where you only have the liquor stores that the government runs to go to. You can also get cold beer and wine off sales. So if it's attached to a bar, they can get a liquor license and have like a little shop to sell cold beer and wine and spirits and whatever. And what I noticed is right away, those independent shops, people who actually want to work for a living and don't rely on taxpayer money and stuff like that, they kept all of that on the shelves right away. It was like, okay, you want bourbon, you want that kind of thing, you go to the independent shops and it's still available. But because it's the government supplying the whole supply chain, it was a limited amount of time. And believe me, it all sold out. To the point where those shelves weren't empty because they emptied the shelves
Remember how
out. They're
stupid
empty
it is?
because people bought it.
It was way dumber on top of that because I remember partway through last year, we had, or it was earlier in 2026 when the boycott was in place. So we can't buy American stuff. Okay, fair enough. We'll figure something else out. And then all the flipping stupid unionized liquor store employees went on strike, so you could basically not buy anything anywhere. It's like, well, thanks, guys. You're really doing a great marketing campaign on behalf of Canada right now. We'll take the American stuff off the shelves. And can I buy anything else? No, because we're on strike for 18% higher wages or something.
That is so Canada. That is so typical.
I'm so blown away by it. I got another comment here from Milo Nexus says, major news, Carney proclaims he controls the weather. He will proclaim to be God next week. Yeah, well, appreciate that. Thank you. You never know what Carney is going to say next. I mean, what we got in Canada for the past year was, well, during the election, it was the promise that Carney's going to be the tough guy and stand up to Trump. Now, I was saying from the get-go, perhaps Canada should actually capitulate with Trump's demands. Now, we remember his initial demands were cut out the fentanyl stuff, do something about all this stuff that's happening in your country. I know he said that it was coming across the border and a lot of people contended with that, but there is a lot of fentanyl activity happening in Canada. And he was like, I want you to take care of that. I also want you to spend 2% of your GDP on military expenditures. You can spend it on whatever you want. It doesn't have to be anything as long as you're like labeling it military. You can buy $2 million, 2% of the economy's worth of tampons for all he cared, is for the men's bathrooms, as long as it was military expenditures, right? And that was the whole idea. And Carney was like, had the position, and so many people had the position of, no, I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, I'm not gonna do what you tell me because I won't do what I'm told. And it really left a sour taste in the mouth of American diplomats because on one end, America wasn't doing this wasn't doing this just with Canada, just to pick on Canada. What you might be led to believe because of what was happening in the media, but what was happening is Donald Trump was saying, we're changing the deal. We're going away from what happened after the Second World War, and we're going back to an idea that we want to preserve our industry instead of shipping it off to all these other countries to serve us and us just be the consumer of all these items. No, we want to produce these items, produce them for ourselves, and sell them to the world. And we don't want this to be this whole system to be upsetted. We want to bring it back. And you know what? It's largely popular with Americans. Believe me. Outside of like crazy Democrats, Americans are, even left-wing Americans are like, yeah, we should really have an industrial base. I don't know why we got away from that. And if that's what's actually happening, they're actually on board with those ideas. So in Canada,
it used to be a more historical Democrat position to be more pro-protectionist.
Yes, you're
No,
absolutely
I'm not
correct.
protectionist, but that's the whole problem with Canadians thinking, "Oh, this is a Trump administration thing. We're gonna fight back until Trump's gone or he loses the midterms." Like loses the midterms to Rust Belt Democrats who made their entire careers off of protectionist policies. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, let's not forget that Donald Trump was a Democrat at one point.
Well, we had Anthony Housefather, the MP from Mount Royal in Montreal, who headed down to hit doors for Debbie Wasserman Schultz in her re-election run, a pro-protectionist Democrat. The same day we were strong-armed into the trade deal. Now, again, from the Trump administration's perspective, like they were waiting so long, they probably, from their perspective, they had to strong arms, and we should have been signing the deal a year and a half ago. But like, goodness, Anthony Housefather, what the heck is with the timing here? I don't think she needed you for her re-election against some random DSA flunky.
Not very helpful. And then what was it? Chrystia Freeland. She came out of her her den with the other witches.
That is the video I just made before I came on here. She secretly hates Mark Carney. She flipping hates that guy. Hates him.
I don't think it's a secret. It was the reason why she resigned, right?
Yeah, one of her children is the godfather to one of her children, and she flipping hates him because the thing is that she sucked at her job, but she would have sucked at her job less if Justin Trudeau was not forcing her to implement Mark Carney's ideas when he was the economic advisor. You remember that stupid GST HST freeze? That was his idea. That was Mark Carney's idea. She got to implement it. Then she looked like a complete freak, blowing past her $40 billion deficit red line and having to pump it all the way up to like $65 billion. She looked like an idiot. And there was many ideas that she had to implement that were his ideas over time. And then he walked into office and be like, oh, wow, good thing Justin Trudeau's no longer prime minister. Chrystia, you're demoted because you're an idiot. And it's like, I'd hate him too after that.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the video that I'm talking about. So this just showed up in my timeline actually just before the live stream tonight.
I think that is a bad outcome for Canada to have permanent tariffs on our steel, aluminum, cars, and car parts. Really harmful for those sectors. But I think it's a bad outcome for the United States as well. It's really important for people to recognize that you can lose by winning if you've defined winning in a way which is self-mutilating. I would say Brexit, the British decision to leave the EU, is a great historic example of losing by winning.
It was a loss for the elite.
In this case, I think it's really important for Americans to understand that putting permanent tariffs on Canadian steel and on Canadian aluminum hurts U.S. manufacturing. These are inputs into the U.S. manufacturing sector, and you are choosing to make your own manufacturers weaker. The tariffs that were imposed in 2018, there have been a lot of academic studies on the impact, and the net impact was harming U.S. manufacturing.
Short term, and this is the whole thing. Like these people only think short term, and the reality of the matter is things like this are economic signals. They're signals to people, entrepreneurs, to actually invest in capital within the United States, within the border of the United States. A lot of these tariffs, a lot of these things that were brought in, yes, they're going to be detrimental to some certain industries. Now, it's going to free up a lot of Canadians to do other things. If free market, if there's markets that are available in Canada that, under whatever trade deal, we don't know what the deal, what the end product of the deal is. But yes, it looks like some steel manufacturing, aluminum manufacturing is going to end up in the United States. Ladies like, I'm very generous in calling her a lady, but people like Chrystia Freeland, they come to the table with short-term viewpoints. Like, wow, that's great if it's going to be harmful for the first 2 quarters of the next year, but that's not long-term. We have right now automotive manufacturing leaving Canada and moving to the United States, and yes, it's about a 1.5 year turnaround, but that's something massive for the Americans, and Americans are very happy about this as much as Canadians are not enthused about it, and Canadians are going to have to find other things to do.
What I really want to know, though, was that video filmed in Ukraine?
Good point.
Well, you know what? That at least means that
Right
we
now.
didn't pay for the cameras for once. Actually, never mind. It's Ukraine. We probably did pay for the cameras.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
No,
Out
but the real, and you have to remember with that video, the first 10 seconds is what she actually wanted to say. She's coming back at Carney and saying, hey, because remember, people criticize Freeland for her trade agreement with Donald Trump on the USMCA and Kuzma because it left 6% tariffs on Canadian cars and some other minor tariffs here and there. Paltry. In
That's
comparison
pretty
to
good.
what Carney is currently agreeing to. So she's coming for her pound of flesh. So the first 10 seconds was her slamming Carney, and then she kind of prattles on with some Canadian, pro-Canada, this is actually kind of bad for the U.S. if you think about it, type stuff, just to soften the blow so that it's not explicit that she's just backhanding Mark Carney and then moving on, being like, hey, freaking who's bad at trade deals now, idiot?
But at the same time, Carney, what choice does he have? Because with no deals, we're looking at a 50% tariff. And yes, I get it. It's not a good deal for Canada right now, but the flip side is a worse outcome. So ultimately, he was strong-armed into this. He had no choice. His back was
Here's
against
what I
the
would
wall.
say.
I'm going to push back on that. I'm going to push back on that.
Here's the thing.
Hold on, Wyatt. I want to push
Okay,
back on this one. So
Turn every
Mark
one to
Carney,
my show.
I thought. So here's the thing, Mark Carney, if he'd done nothing, if he just capitulated with Donald Trump a year ago, Canadians would be better off. Absolutely. If he would have just said, yes, sir, I'll do exactly what you want, Canadians would have been pissed off, but they would have been a lot better off. Right now, there is how many jobs have been lost over the past year because of Mark Carney, because of Doug Ford, because of all these different things as he prolonged the inevitable. He dragged it out because the concept and the idea was, let's drag it out until it gets closer to the midterms, and then Trump won't want to have this sort of relationship, and he won't want to do this because it'll be bad news just before the midterms. It turns out Americans don't give a shit. Let's just be honest. Americans don't care, and when it comes to the midterms, they're much more concerned about how socialist the Democrats have gone, and they're very concerned. So it is looking very red for the midterms, and I'll be covering all of that. So this idea that Mark Carney really, it's, he had to deal with the situation he had. He could have done this a year ago.
No, for
He
sure. It's
literally could have
self-inflicted.
done this.
It's
totally
self-inflicted for sure. But the thing
We're
is,
in a pushing back Congo line because you're pushing back on Elliot and I'm going to push back on you slightly. It's more so just from the perspective that I don't think we wouldn't even have to have framed it as capitulation. If I was Carney, even before calling an election or right after the April election, I would have been at the table saying, okay, you want a horse trade? Let's horse trade. And I would have done it in such a way where I would have actually probably gotten some decent stuff back, because rather than sacrificing the DST and the streaming tax and the Gordie Howe Bridge for nothing, duct tape all those things together, pair them up with saying, I will not deal with China. Now, the China deal didn't exist until January, so I'll assume that that's not on the table. But I would have duct taped all these things together. I'll get rid of supply management. I'll get rid of Bill C-18. We'll build the Keystone and make it look like you gave Trump a lot of stuff, even though I, as a conservative, don't like these things anyways, and I would have dumped them. But that's the thing. It's like none of these people have read Donald Trump's book as if it's like the satanic Bible and they're not allowed to read it. Just read the thing. He pushes you. He's hyperbolic with his threats. He pushes as hard as possible. He'll ask for 150% of what he wants, and then he'll pretend to discount you down to 100% of what he wants, and then he'll get everything. Like, what you do is you have to make the guy feel like he won harder than you. But the problem with elbows up, because there's nothing actually technically wrong with being aggressive. There's tons of different trade strategies you could pick from. There's no good one. If Carney was really committed to like the bit where I'm crazy, you try and tariff me, I'll freaking put 300% tariffs on you and I'll rip you to shreds. If he did that, maybe that could work, but he's not the type of guy to do that.
It would never work,
like
though.
every strategy all at once and none of them worked. So he's going to jab Trump, but he's also going to be friendly to him. And he's going to make a bunch of concessions. And then he's going to complain that he didn't get anything in return. And then he's going to jab Trump at Davos. It was just stupidity the entire way through. It was like he couldn't pick an actual trade strategy the entire time. And I think Trump didn't respect him at all. And it's not that you have to like be nice to him, make Trump respect you. He didn't respect Carney because he's a weasel. Carney's not tough. He's a guy who plays tough on TV and then behind the scenes is really nice. And I think that's the thing that Trump wants to, he wants to humiliate him at some point. Because, and that's what J.D. Vance even said, that we humiliated him because he's going out there puffing out his chest and Trump wants to deflate him.
But another thing too, though, is that Carney is not a negotiator. Okay, no matter what he says, and I know he came on the air a year and a half ago before the election. I'm a negotiator. I've negotiated tough stuff in my life. He's a manager,
central banker. Yeah.
He's a manager. He knows how to manage and operate a bank. Yes, a fund. Sure. Trump, he negotiated with the mafia in New York. All right. We're talking two different ball games. There's a huge difference. And I've dealt with it myself. As an entrepreneur, you got to know how to sell. You got to know how to negotiate. There's different techniques, like Wyatt said. Some people are aggressive. Some people are passive. Some people it's a win-win, whatever the hell it may be. But Carney comes onto the stage, claims he's a good negotiator. He's never negotiated shit in his life. The most he's probably done, and again, as a executive of a huge fund or as a Wall Street banker, sure, he's negotiated with lower management, yes men, people who would say, yeah, okay, sure, maybe he'll get a bit of pushback, but ultimately he'll just pull rank. But that doesn't work when you're negotiating with another head of state. And that's why I'm saying he got manhandled and he got pushed in a corner where he had no leverage anymore. All of his concessions, and Wyatt is definitely right about that. You could have packaged a bunch of things, a bunch of sacrificial lambs, but he just gave it away drip by drip. And now, and that's why I'm saying he had to take the deal because his back is against the wall and he's got no more chess pieces to deal with.
I think that you could still have gotten something better than he got now, but with his personality and with his inability to rip up the China deal and get rid of supply management, this is maybe the best he could do, but that's not an endorsement of him. It's not like, oh, not that you're endorsing him doing this, but my point is more so, it's not like this is what anyone could have gotten, the best anyone could have gotten last minute. If you put in pretty much any conservative, they probably would have figured out a way of like saying, maybe because it's been so long and it's been so much managed up to this point, you can't get to 0 tariffs, but maybe you can get the steel and aluminum down to 10. Maybe
and
you
then
can get
there's a bunch of soft
8. You know what I mean?
And there's a bunch of soft concessions that could have been done as well. Like the alcohol ban, that was an easy thing, right? So the U.S. ambassador, I had a discussion with him. And he made it very clear. It's not economically a threat to us. We don't care. It represents a few $100 million a year for us, Kentucky bourbon or whatever. They don't care. It was about the message it was sending out. So the booze is an easy, low-hanging fruit. Another thing too, and again, I read The Art of the Deal. Trump has an ego. You know the man. It's not secret. Just stroke his ego a little bit. Give him concessions. Speak nicely of him.
That's
in the
actually
media.
his weak spot. And
Exactly.
people don't get that. That's actually his weak spot. If you wanted
Even
to
Kim Jong-un
get to him,
understands this as
yeah,
somebody who never has to flatter anybody day to day. He understands you have to flatter this guy.
yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because like of all the people that have Trump derangement syndrome, you think that they would be going after his ultimate weak spot, and they go nowhere near it. All they want to do is insult the guy, and he's just impervious to insults. Absolutely. I mean, Donald Trump. I gotta hand it to the guy, right? So Donald Trump is the biggest believer in Donald Trump in the freaking world, and nobody's gonna convince him otherwise. And that's why he's on top. That's why he's on top, and he's never left it. It's freaking amazing. It blows me away.
And here's the thing with Carney too. This is Carney's thing. He is scared of Donald Trump. Not like physically, not like he's intimidated by him in terms of like the power of the United States or something like that. He is scared of Trump for one egotistical reason, because Mark Carney thinks he is the most sophisticated man on the planet, and Donald Trump is the least sophisticated man. So he didn't want to get into a negotiating room and look not sophisticated by getting outplayed in any way. And the possibility of being outplayed for a year and a half has kept Mark Carney from engaging the negotiations directly. Great point that Ryan from Northern Perspective made. Is something that we've all probably thought in the back of our minds, but he put it into really good words. He was elected to be the negotiator against Trump, and the entire time he has let Janice Charette and Dominic LeBlanc do all the work. So what the hell was he supposed to be doing this entire time? Like, what the heck were you supposed to be here for? He was off in Italy during this. And like, at some point, I expect he's going to throw Dominic LeBlanc under the bus and say, I don't even know what the heck he did here. Like, it's so pathetic that this is the point that we're at when he was supposed to be the master negotiator. But again, there's certain tactics in negotiations with Trump that Mark Carney is incapable of doing, because he'd have to lower himself from the extremely high position that he imagines himself to be. Because if I was in the room, and it sounds like Elliot too, because you seem to understand the psychology of Trump pretty well from the book, and probably Clyde too. You have to kind of act like everything that Trump's getting out of you is really tough for you to give up. But I guess I can give you the DST and the streaming text. Damn it. Okay, I'll give you Bill C-18. I have to get this, but it's going to be really hard for me to go back and ask people to give up supply management, man. I'll have to go back and talk to people. And then you give it to him, and then he feels better in giving you more back because he thought he got something really big. Even if as maybe a conservative, he'd be totally fine of just slashing it regardless of a trade deal.
So Mark Carney's
incapable of looking weak. He's incapable of looking like, weaker or less intelligent than someone else.
So the thing about Mark Carney is, he grew up in what was it, Calgary, the Calgary area, and then he went to all these Edmonton, went to all these elite schools and all this other stuff. He's fallen into this trap, right? That to be sophisticated, if that's his most important thing, is he wants to look sophisticated. To come across as sophisticated, in whatever echelon circles that he wants to, you have to play this thing. You got to build up the vocabulary to say the particular words that make you sound intelligible or what have you. What actually makes you sophisticated is to be able to communicate with the most amount of people possible. And Donald Trump is actually sophisticated for this reason. So to pull out the smart guy words and try to impress other people, but be a poor communicator, actually makes you much worse off in any situation. If you especially in the political game, especially in the economics game and business world, you want to be able to communicate with the most amount of people at their level. I mean, read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, way before Trump's Art of the Deal. It really spells this out. You want to be able to communicate with people, and you don't want to belittle them every time. What does Donald Trump do every time he talks to somebody or talks about somebody? The most beautiful person. Oh, everybody said he's such a great person. Everybody thinks blah, blah, blah. And he just throws out this like fanfare of compliments towards people. And it's a great tactic. It's something that Donald Trump is very, very skilled at. And when he communicates to crowds, he dumbs down the message to a message that everybody can appreciate.
Well,
And
Trump
yes,
is always
if you may have a great vocabulary and you might say that he should have said different words, but all the people wouldn't have got it if he didn't say it the way he said it.
Well, Trump's always been excellent at addressing the right way the audience in front of him. You look at his interviews back in the 1980s, and he's using a fairly sophisticated language, but he's being interviewed on TV as a businessman. That's the image he's portraying. Then you listen to him campaigning in like 2016, and he's stalking at a grade 5 level. And I never understood all the pundits saying,
but it's not belittling, though. It's not belittling like when Hillary Clinton or some of these other people do it.
He dumbs down the language.
Stupid code switching thing where he's going to try and be like, I have hot sauce in my purse.
Yeah. It's not going to be like Kamala, who's going to put on a different accent based on the audience. No, but he uses a more basic language and easier words to understand because he's talking,
but not in a condescending way.
Not in a very friendly way, as a matter of fact. But that's intelligence, and that's emotional intelligence as well. And again, all the pundits that were attacking him on how retarded he sounded, I was like, no, you're missing the point completely. He's a natural born salesman. Trump is so good at that.
And do you know who you can watch too that also proves this point? One of his mentors in terms of the business world and negotiations is Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn is a lawyer, a very seasoned lawyer. He flipping just uses the exact words he needs to in any situation. And that's how he bulldozes his way to victory.
I gotta look into this guy. I don't know.
I have to make sure that they think I have contempt for them, and I'll dry this case out as long as I want, and I'll bankrupt us both. That's all I need to do. Neither of those men would ever use the word catalyze. Trump would, if he was a Canadian prime minister, would say, well, I'm doing this because I want Canada to win more, or because we just need to increase our industry. I just want to drive more money into this industry. We want to invest here, blah, blah. Catalyze is the most pretentious word you could use.
This is a rapture.
Catalyze better than any other word. I want to create because literally you're describing. I want to create a meeting of two forces, of two chemicals to create a reaction in order to make a new thing in its place. And it's like, why is that better than just saying I want to grow the economy?
But it's also double speak.
Pretentious dweeb.
Yeah, but it's also double speak. It's saying words that mean nothing. A sign of intelligence is being
smart for stupid people.
Well, exactly, right? A sign of intelligence. Look, in business, again, I'll bring it back to business. We're told to hammer down our 2-minute elevator pitch. If you can explain your concept in a super silly, stupid way that anyone would understand, then you understand your product and your idea good enough. Well, same thing. If you're addressing a country on the strategy you want to implement, if you can't explain it simply and you have to sound smart with big words all the time, you're probably hiding something.
That's how it comes across. I'll give you that. It's how it comes across, because I know a lot of like tradesmen, they'll get like a guy that comes in to try to sell them tools or whatever, and if they're a pompous kind of dude, they'll be like, I don't trust that guy. He's just got that way about him. I'm not gonna and then that guy's only a tool salesman for a couple of months, right? Because he doesn't sell anything. I get it. I absolutely get what you're saying there.
Yeah, man, definitely. And again, and that's the thing, and our media sucks at that as well. They get hung up on the narrative, right? The Davos speech, it was the most brilliant thing ever. But again, you're selling air. And let's look at results. What's happened since Davos? Well, what happened?
No middle powers have come together to go against.
The content of it wasn't real.
Yeah, and what happened to the middle powers?
None of them have come together for this thing. In fact, college students are forced to read his speech as an example of like what a great real world leader says, and it's just fluff. It really is. It's just fluff. It's like his book. His book was 160 pages of fluff with Karl Marx sprinkled into the middle of it. It's like fucking garbage, man. It has
a pretentious stupid name. Values, and it had just an empty book of just prattling. It's just I like the way that sometimes British commentators call it. It's just stupid upper middle class prattle. It's just upper middle class bloat. Not that if you make a certain amount of money, that's how people talk. No, it's someone who wants you to know they have a certain amount of money in their bank account, when nobody who actually is successful does this. And by the way, I even criticize the Conservative Party for this in a different way. The way that you use language should always be simple. If you're door knocking, if you're speaking in front of Parliament, if you're speaking at a press conference, no alliterations, no marketing speak, no big words that are just unnecessary for the task at hand. You pull out a big word when it's the only word who could possibly sum up what we're talking about right now. It's like I hate when the Conservatives, they start getting on a line of specifically using alliteration. Fake phony refugees, fake phony fraudulent refugees. Stop it. Stop with the partial alliterations. I hate
Yeah,
it.
people are sick of
It's
it.
so marketing-y, and as soon as you use that, if you go to someone's door and you speak one-on-one like that, they'll immediately turn off and be like, what the heck are you trying to sell me?
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna turn to the super chats real quick. Fido Bedit. No, I don't know how to pronounce that.
I
Thank you
wish
for
they
the.
would actually put the real person's screen name rather than
Yeah, they don't. They
terrible
switch that.
reading
It's
some of the names.
awful these days. But thank you so much for the 250 Jules. That's amazing. Really appreciate that. Shooter McCundy. That's a great name. For $5 says, will Canada ever be a brainwashed? Will Canada ever not be a brainwashed commie hellhole? I read that wrong. I was like, it already is. No, will it never not be? I hope one day. But we talked about this last week, Elliot. The concept of when a culture gets taken over by socialism, it kind of ruins the culture for a few generations afterwards. You kind of have to like almost breed that out of people, or if not breed that out of the people, they have to learn again what it's like to be a free country.
Yeah, well, it's the principle of feeding wild animals. I think that's what we were talking about last time. They lose their innate instinct to hunt and fend for themselves. The more dependent you become on the government, the easier the government has to control you, manipulate you, have its way with you. And then people, forget how to go out there and earn it. Look, it's not easy. Nobody likes to wake up in the morning and go to work, their 9 to 5. Nobody likes to. Everyone rather have everything handed to them. But that's not life. That just ain't it. So right now, the sad thing is that, and I don't want to start breaking out the generational divide, but you have in Canada a generation, the 65 plus, 60 plus, that grew up in call it a bear market of sorts, a booming culture, a booming country. North America as a whole was booming, in the US as well. And then after that, they became a little bit complacent. They still live in the past. They don't realize the struggles that younger generations are facing. Then you got millennials that are working just as hard, if not even harder, and getting less. But then the real danger, and this is the point I want to make, is you get to the Gen Z, the Zoomers, and eventually the Gen Alpha, like my son and your kids as well, Clyde. The problem is if they're checking out, because back in the days, you did and you worked that shitty job, or you got up every day and you did what you had to do because there was a prospect of a better tomorrow. You knew if you make the right moves, if you put into work, you will be able to afford that house. You'll be able to have kids. You'll be able to have a half decent life. But nowadays, people don't want to work those shitty jobs. And I was having a discussion with my mother just a couple of days ago. She's the general manager of a long-term care facility, and she has such a hard time finding employees. And she's like, I know we have a creep in unemployment rate. Why can't I find people? And I said, well, look, back in the days, these individuals, they could work that shitty job for a shitty wage, knowing that, again, it would yield a better tomorrow eventually. But nowadays, you have an entire generation that looks at their prospect. They've given up on the opportunity to buy a house. Like, it's over. It'll never happen. They've given up on having families. And they're there and they're like, it's not worth the opportunity cost of me working ain't there anymore. I'd rather just, do nothing at home. I value my free time more than I value earning a meager wage that won't get me anything anyways in the future. And that's the danger. You've created apathy now for an entire generation. And that needs to be reversed. You need to be able to bring about a dream, a bit like in 2016 when Trump kind of awoken the entire middle America with Make America Great Again. There is the opportunity for a better tomorrow, if only we make the right decisions today. And we suffer a little bit today as well, right? I like the analogy of your room always gets messier before it gets cleaner. Or you go to the gym.
Dr. Peterson, yeah.
Yeah, or you mentioned you started going back to the gym. It's hard the first
Yeah.
couple weeks. It's painful. You don't see
It
results
hurts.
right away. Yeah,
It hurts. It sucks.
It sucks.
Holy cow, does it suck?
Well, there you go. But eventually, the pain subsides, and then the fruit of your labor, appears.
You feel good. You just feel good.
There you go. So
So just before the chat, we were talking about this, and just before we went live, I said because Elliot's quite a fit guy. You can go check out his Instagram. You'll see exactly. So when I moved to Texas, because I have a bit more free time because the economy's good here and I don't have to work like a slave all the time, I took a gym membership and I go to the gym every single day. I just made it like a thing that I do every day. Go there for an hour and get a workout. And at first, like, holy crap, like you're just in pain for the first week. Like I do those exercises and I'm in pain. And then the next day I go and do different exercises. Now I'm in pain over here. And then it hurts for a bit, but then it pays off because after a bit of time, now you just feel good all the time. Now I just want to do it. I just want to go. I don't feel like it's a drag. It makes me feel better when I go.
As the resident skinny fat guy on this panel, I feel discriminated against. Goodness. Why do you think I wear button-up shirts and plaid and sweaters?
well, there
I'm
you
not
go.
just doing it.
So
to
I
pretend to
was
be
very
rugged like
fit when I
Clyde.
was young, and that's one of those things. So I was very fit when I was young, and then I let it go. I let it go to the point where I started getting a gut, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to do something about that.
You know what, Clyde? I'm gonna give you a compliment. You know what? You're the one guy who wears plaid all the time and has a beard who doesn't make it look like he grew the beard because of his chin like Matt Walsh, and you don't look like you're dressed up like a Portland barista. So you know what? You're the one guy who's allowed to do it.
I got approval. from
Underneath
Wyatt, like-
underneath Matt Walsh's beard, there's a sticky note from God that says, "I owe you one jawline."
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I'm stealing that joke from Razor Fist.
Oh, too funny. Yeah, no, I you know how I got the beard? I got the beard because I have so much appreciation for my dad. My dad had a beard my whole growing up, and then I always just felt like a man should have a beard. That's my dad had a beard. I should have a beard. And then I grew the beard, and I feel good about it. You know, there was a lot of years that I wasn't allowed to. You know, there was a bunch of years that I lived in Japan. They frown on the beard thing, and I worked at a bar, and they wanted like the young, strapping, good-looking thing going on, so I had to clean shave. But then, yeah, no, I grew the beard, and I was like, yeah.
Dude, if I try and grow a beard, that's another way I feel discriminated by this entire panel. If I try and grow a beard for like 3 weeks, I just look like I was like a Russian sailor on like a nuclear sub who had to go in and try and like stop a meltdown, and all my hair's just coming out. I just look like a bear from like Chernobyl or something like that, where there's like nothing left. It just does not grow. It looks like spider legs are coming out of my face for like an entire month and a half.
Too funny.
Yeah.
Jeez. On that amazing note, Clyde, I gotta bow out. I have to head to
Absolutely.
dinner. So
This was expected. So thank you so much for joining. All the links are in the description down below. Make sure you go check out Elliot Daigneault. I hope I'm saying that right.
much better.
Daigneault. I don't know. I'm
All
saying
good.
it hopefully well. The links are in the description down below. Go check him out. Wyatt and I are going to continue this out. Any last messages you want to say to everybody?
Yeah, buy some American booze if you're in Canada, and if you're in the US, well, enjoy it. But you guys enjoy your Friday evening, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining.
Take care, guys.
The
Wyatt.
French guy retreated from the stream.
The white flag came out. Too funny. Let's get into
because I'm a coward. Yeah.
Let's get into some of these other comments. We've got one from Milo Nexus for $2 says, Freeland should aim for Carney's job. Or deal with.
Genuinely, she'd probably be doing a better
dude.
job. Like genuinely.
You know what's
Freeland
funny is
by
she
comparison
was
right now is
aiming
not that
for that
bad.
job. She was aiming for that job, and she was denied it, and that's why she quit. And that's an ugly picture. We got Trish Prue jumping in, member for 45 months. Can you believe that? She says Carney fucked around and found out with Trump, and he's finding her out. He is definitely finding out. Absolutely correct on that one. Good assessment. Darren Sanders for $20. Is that Hold on. Is this the Darren Sanders that I know? Maybe. For $20. Thank you so much.
He's from BC.
Said- yeah, it is from BC. Okay. The whole booze thing is an irritant. From Northwest BC, the majority of the towns. No, it's not the Darren. It's not that there. Okay, I know. But so the irritant from the Northwest BC, the majority of the towns are on life support because of all the mills being shut down. The distraction is outrageous. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're correct on that one. 100 Mile House. Do you know this? 100 Mile House in British Columbia. For people who don't know where 100 Mile House is, but 100 Mile House is a town that's kind of north of the main area of BC where a lot of stuff's happening. It's kind of in the middle BC, but it used to have a lot of activity. There used to be a lot of sawmills out of that place, and CN Rail would have a rail car that would go there and bring a lot of stuff back. And because it would be a little bit more treacherous by truck or whatever. So that was happening. All those mills basically over time shut down because of policy. It's really been a policy problem. It's not been a lack of will to do it. It's not a lack of demand for the products. It is literally they've been shut out of their own industry by the policy. So much so to the point that CN Rail has discontinued rail service to 100 Mile House. That is tragic.
Do you want to hear something pathetic? Because as the communications director for One BC, I found this out and I actually made a question about it for QPU in the BC legislature. Port Alberni, in the middle of Vancouver Island, they have sawmills, they have paper mills. Even during the tariff war, they were importing California and Washington State wood fiber because they couldn't get enough in BC because of how bad the regulations were.
That's ridiculous.
They would pay the tariff on California and Washington wood fiber because you couldn't even get it from the island, even though there's an abundance. But you have to flip and do a land acknowledgement and an entire smudging ceremony every time you want to cut down one tree. So what's the point?
What is smudging, by the way?
I don't know. It's just some stupid thing that people do. I don't know. I'm probably offending people, but if I don't know what your thing is, I'm allowed to make fun of it.
Stupid. It sounds stupid to me. From my experience, a lot of what Native people do is just made up like typically in the 1990s when they just made up a lot of stuff. And so I hate to say this, but I dismiss most of what I hear about what Natives do as like traditions.
Well, it's kind of suspicious that somehow the same practices can go from literally East Coast Canada all the way to West Coast Canada and literally up to Haida Gwaii. Like somehow they had a very good cultural, trade routes back before, Europeans were here. They were all saying, hey, when people other than us show up to this continent, we're all sticking to the smudging thing, right? Okay, cool. I mean, like that for some reason, that's the thing that everyone's stuck to.
Well, the joke that I like is that they had no concept of private property, except for the fact that they used to steal private property from each other all the time. They understood the concept that this is my stuff and that's their stuff, and I'm gonna go over and kill them and take their stuff. And
they're hypocrites on two levels. Not the average, obviously, Indigenous person, but just the band leaders and whatnot, and all the lawyers, because like they understand the concept of owning something and controlling it, and that if you control it, you own it, because they try and take it from other people. But then suddenly, when they're trying to file lawsuits, it's I walked by this stone one time. Like, well, back in the day, you owned it only if you could fight for it, and you can't fight for it. So what are we talking about?
Or you homestead it. Like it would be a homesteading thing. Either you put up a fort and you beat some army that's coming at you that wants it instead of you, or you homestead it and nobody else has claimed it. You homestead, you actually change the landscape into something else. And you make it your home.
Sometimes push it back on like kind of people online who get baited into the whole, it's not stolen land, it's conquered. Like, it's not conquered either. You walked into empty space, you built something, and then like 50 years later, someone's like, hey, and it's like, well, it's mine now. You were like, you guys haven't shown up here in years. and you haven't
Yeah.
done anything with it the entire time you've ever been passing by it. Like, again, how would European land ownership work if just walking past something one time every few years counted as this is now mine forever?
And it's not a case that you can't argue this in law and that there's no laws written about it. I mean, we have a rich history of law written about rights for homesteaders,
Yeah.
people who have claimed
Squatters' rights
land.
in some places, like you get squatters' rights in some places after just a few years. Because if you're so incompetent you can't notice an entire farm popping up on the piece of land that you supposedly own, you don't really own it.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. We got Bromsley jumping in here with another super chat saying, for $5, thank you so much. He says, please tell me Wyatt is not intelligent enough to have recognized the CPC controlled opposition by now. Are you unaware of the controlled opposition that the CPC is?
They're not controlled
Canadian
opposition, they're
Conservative
just
Party
incompetent sometimes, and that's why I'm on social media criticizing them for the stupid OAS announcement they made in their the Chicoutimi riding in Quebec. I know I'm saying that wrong, but like the Le Fjord by-election, they put up a candidate who doesn't seem bad, but they did all apparently it's like the oldest average population riding in all of Quebec, and Quebec's a fairly old province as well in terms of average age. It's stupid old age security announcements of saying we're going to increase your old age security benefits and we're going to lower the taxes on them. It's like, come on, people. The good thing is I can tell people. I'll never reveal people's names because anonymity is kind of needed in politics when you're trying to convince people of stuff. I have lots of MPs now who watch the show, who reach out and contact me, and they say, I'd love for the Conservative Party, and they're advocating for it, to take on just a basic 20% across the board tax cut. None of this stupid, well, I'll give you a benefit here. Old people get this benefit here. Young people get this rebate. It's like, stop it. It's annoying. It's actually what Elliot mentioned. And I can't believe I'm complimenting something a Frenchman has said, but he was right. But I'm just cartoonishly anti-French people in this stream. But he was right that it should be simple enough to explain in a sentence. It should be a cocktail napkin simple. And that's what the Conservative Party, for some reason, resists to their detriment. And it would change. I'm not asking them to do anything revolutionary. It's like a pivot to the side. Stop promising, eliminate the industrial carbon tax, slight changes in regulations to capital gains taxes. Oh, and we're gonna take off taxes on used cars and all this stuff. It's like, maybe I'm okay with those things. Fair enough. I'm okay with those. If it was take it or leave it, I would take that. But if you're running on something, run on something that everyone can imagine what it will do for their own life. 20% across the board tax cuts, including corporations, and take 1% off the GST. Simple. Everyone understands. But the Conservative Party is so worried that it takes like little small steps here and there. And maybe altogether it's actually a substantial savings for everyone, but no one knows what you're talking about.
I find the 1% off the GST like as a condescending thing. Because GST was supposed to be a temporary thing until they balanced the budget. They balanced the budget, and here we are with the GST.
And I get that. My point is that some people say let's eliminate income taxes and not GST. Let's have it all be sales taxes and no income taxes, or all income taxes and no sales taxes. My goal is basically to say let's lower taxes as much as we can, no matter what type it is. The GST thing is an acknowledgement that if you're making less than $50,000 a year, taking 20% off your income tax rate honestly doesn't do all that much because you're not paying that much in the first place. 1% off the GST is probably more than even taking 20% off their federal income tax rate, because that's like taking 1% or even not even a full percent off their income tax.
How do you let people understand this? Because they make the tax code so complicated as to make you not realize how much you're losing. So how is it that when you give people a savings, that you can communicate how much they're saving?
Well, and that's where you say it's 20% across the board, including corporate, 1 point off the GST, and this is how much a family making this much will save. That's all you have to basically say. It's like 2 sentences is the entire tax plan. Tax plan is 1 sentence. The results is a 2nd sentence. Right now, Poilievre's getting like a paragraph deep, just explaining how the industrial carbon tax works.
Nobody's buying it.
I hate the industrial carbon tax as much as the next guy. We all hate it. It's stupid. And I would get rid of it if I was in charge of the country. I'd do that. But what Poilievre needs to do is stop fighting small technical taxes and just fight taxes in general. Because, or else people don't really see the material difference between conservatives and liberals. Would Canada be better under Poilievre's platform of 2025? Yeah, probably substantially better. Not as better as I would like it to be, but the problem is people couldn't really imagine that it would be better because it was too technical. Oh, I'm going to get rid of this obscure tax, or oh, I'm going to change this regulation over here. Okay, well, what does that do? Everything needs to be kind of brass tacks for people, and it's not because people are dumb, it's because people don't want voting to be an entire, like, fourth year university program where you need to like figure out exactly what you have stuff to do, and you don't want to hear exactly how much money the industrial carbon tax is going to save you if you eliminate it.
Yes, and this is why direct democracy doesn't work, because if you had to vote on every single issue, people just wouldn't show up. And that's a problem. But then also representative democracy comes in, or becomes bad, because people just don't understand the system, and then they vote for BS that sounds nice. And speaking of BS that sounds nice, this came from the Conservative Party, from the leader, from Pierre Poilievre, just recently standing up for dairy supply chains, like right as it looks like maybe there might be a move on the side of getting rid of some of that. Here's the clip right here. Let's play this.
Would you support changes to supply managed dairy to try to strike a deal with them?
Well, we do not believe that there should be unilateral concessions to the United States of America, getting nothing in return. We believe that the United States spends tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies to its farmers, which put our producers at a competitive disadvantage. And we believe in standing up for our farmers on this side of the border, including supply managed farmers. We believe that they produce an excellent product, and we don't accept the view that our farmers are at are getting unfair advantages over the United States. If you look south of the border, they're the ones that are doing massive subsidies that create enormous one-sided advantages in their favor. So we think it's time for our Prime Minister to start fighting for our farmers and putting our own producers first.
So what's your take on that?
Now, I'm going to pair up an admonishment with an explanation on why this is kind of understandable. Not understandable policy. They should get rid of this immediately. I was talking to a former MP from Saskatchewan, and he made a really good point. The problem is with getting rid of supply management. It's not economic. It's not even electoral. Nobody will lose running against supply management. But it has to do with the fact that a lot of conservatives are not, or just politicians in general, they're not numbers people. Do you know what one of the most heavy dairy ridings is in the country? It's Maxime Bernier's old riding, the Beauce.
Yeah, the one he got kicked out of for going against the dairy lobby.
And the thing is that what people act like, oh, well, he only became anti-dairy when he was running for leader in 2017. No. He was known for being anti-dairy well before that. And there was never a riot on him being against it. Because guess what? In his riding, there's about 4,000 supply management dairy farms in Canada. Most of them family farms. Does that sound like any particular riding is under deep threat from a dairy farm vote, considering there are several dairy farm ridings that have a lot of them in them, but there's only 4,000
So was
farms.
he actually sticking up for his constituents that were coming to him saying, we need to get rid of this dairy lobby?
The whole point is Maxime Bernier didn't have to care because there are not many voters in the first place. And you ignore foolish interest groups like that who obviously don't want you to change the policy because they're incentivized to be, inefficient dairy farms based on the supply management rules.
It was the end of his career, though. Like that killed his career. It
never hurt his career at all, because the thing is that there's way more farmers of other types in his riding. There are way more cattle farmers. There are way more
so it hurt his leadership run. That's what it hurt.
Not even that. It's kind of a myth. They really didn't hurt him that bad. He ran a bad leadership campaign in 2017. Do you know he was pro-carbon tax in 2017? Maxime Bernier was a bag of hot garbage in 2017.
He's
with
been a bag
positions
of hot
all over the
garbage.
place.
If you look him up, he was a bag of hot garbage a lot. I'm not sticking up for Max Bernier, by the way.
My point is that
Anybody
it
who's
was a mixed
yeah.
bag of a leadership campaign.
By the way,
was
he Max Bernier
hyper-socially
just
libertarian. Yeah.
just so people know, when it came to I think it was Trudeau's government was in power. Max Bernier was still an MP with the Conservatives. He voted for compelled speech.
Yeah. No, he was the first MP to flamboyantly always go to the pride parades before, because he up until very recently he was a very socially left wing libertarian, and
Right.
so very much
So
the
I'm not trying to like lead people to believe that I'm like pro PPC or something like that. I've already
I thought you were
said that
actually being fairly like moderate in terms of like you're being very like factual. I'm not trying to attack them because I hate the PPC or anything like that. Like some of their ideas I really like. I wish the Poilievre conservatives would even adopt a few more of them. They even the way that the Poilievre conservatives cut off the PPC was they kind of moved towards the PPC, which helped. But my whole point is that people kind of imagine that the way Maxime Bernier talks in like 2021 was how he talked in 2017. 2017
No, it's changed
Bernier
very much.
is a very different Bernier from 21. If anything, he became like oddly populist in an anti-libertarian way later on. I don't even know what he believes anymore at all. But you couldn't actually pin him down on a carbon tax in 2017 because he didn't quite know, because there are some libertarians out there who actually support, in a ridiculous anti-libertarian way, they support carbon taxes because, it's a market-based solution. And it's not. It's still the government's imposing a tax.
Let's get back to like the idea of Pierre Poilievre coming out in favor of the dairy lobby, instead of just coming out and just saying like, nah, this is an awful system.
Thank you for focusing me, because I was getting thrown off. But a former MP in Saskatchewan who served with a lot of these people for many, many, many years. He said the problem with them is that they live in ridings that has a significant dairy farm the contingent. Not significant enough it really affects the vote in any way.
So Pierre Poilievre does not. He is now in a Alberta riding where it does not matter about the...
No, the whole idea, though, is, remember, he's making that announcement from Quebec, or from the Maritimes, I believe, and it was because he's thinking about the Quebec riding. And the whole problem is that he hears from MPs, you can't touch supply management because I'll have 15 dairy farmers in my office the next day. Politicians are bad with numbers. They don't understand when 15 dairy farmers show up to your office, they represent 35, maybe 40 dairy farms in your entire riding. And how many votes is that? Like 500? They get freaked out by that. And that's dairy farmers and all their employees. They don't understand this doesn't matter. And it's such a stupid thing to defend. And it's stupid because it's bad for the country. It's bad for the average person. Absolutely. Poilievre is wrong on this. I just temper it by saying it's not like he's like in league with the dairy cartel and he knows it sucks, but he's standing up for it anyways. He probably knows it.
So my response to this, of course, was hyperbolic, but it was conservatism is like non-alcoholic beer. What the hell is the point? Or Canadian conservatism. Because like we're not seeing real conservatism out of Canada at this point. We're just seeing like a milk toast. I'll try to be like a kind of here's the thing. Conservatives in Canada try to convince Toronto liberals and Quebec liberals that they're liberal, instead of just going with their base and then expounding on their base and bringing in a culture of conservatism in Canada, because that culture exists even in these places like Ontario and whatever. But those people, they just don't feel represented whatsoever, so they check out and they're not voting because like guy comes to town and he doesn't want to talk to me. He just wants to talk to the liberal idiots. And so they're completely alienating everybody who's out there who is actually conservative. So there's no point.
This former conservative MP, and I was just talking to him like today and yesterday, he had a great line that most politicians are in politics because they couldn't pass grade 12 math. They don't understand that the dairy lobby is not a substantial voting force. And so they probably know supply management is actually bad for the market. Poilievre probably knows it.
So why do they kowtow to it? Tell me that.
And that's what I'm saying. The explanation, it's not a justification, it's an explanation of why they're stupid. They don't understand that when 15
Okay,
people
so we're
come to their
admitting they're
office,
stupid. That is a stupid position,
I know,
right?
I'm not actually defending them. It's more so what you have to realize, not because we're going to keep this in place forever. It's what people have to realize so they know how to talk to their MPs, saying, goodness, calculate how many dairy farmers there are. Calculate how many possible dairy voters there are. There's none. And that's what people have to realize. But people can be freaked out by the smallest of small lobby groups. The NDP is captured by freaks who think that we need equity cards in order to decide speaking order at a convention. Even in the NDP voter base, that's still a small minority of the voter base, but they show up to conventions, so the NDP thinks this represents a substantial voter base in the urban areas. Even in urban areas, those people are not cool. Nobody likes them in urban areas. The thing is, though, that the people that show up to your office, you assume that there's like 100 other people out there. The thing is that, though, people understand that showing up and emailing makes the politician think, oh, if I'm getting an email about this, there must be like 50 other people out there who think the same thing, because that tends to be the calculation people make. But the dairy people know that the politicians make that calculation. So if 15 dairy farmers show up to the guy's office the next day, even if that's half the dairy farmers, they'll think, oh my goodness, this is probably like 7,000 people.
Yes, I think it's overrepresented. Absolutely, it's overrepresented. Now, what was I going to say?
This happens on so many issues where people assume a small lobby who does not matter electorally represents so many people. And it's just, my point is, it's not just dairy. There might even be people watching this right now who think that their specific issue is really, really important and they want politicians to take it seriously.
Yep.
And they would be fools to, because you might be the only person who cares about it. We all have issues like that we think a politician should take on, and it doesn't matter. But the dairy industry is very good at pretending like it's big.
So there's not a lot of issues that I bring up that I get attacked by my own side on, or by our own side, whatever you might think, or like viewers of the channel, stuff like that. Dairy is one of them. And one of these things is, it's unfair. The American market would flood our market with subsidized dairy. And so the big argument is subsidized dairy. Now, in an interim thing, I think this might be a good argument that maybe the conservatives can jump on. They could say, how about we eliminate the dairy market, and what we do is in the interim, not the market, but like
marketing board type,
the marketing board type policy stuff. So the idea of this supply management, we eliminate that and replace it with subsidies for the dairy farmers that exist. Why don't we subsidize the dairy farmers so that dairy is cheaper for Canadians while we open up the market for American dairy to come into the marketplace?
You don't even have to do a subsidy. I made a video on this a few days ago, and I critiqued this exact Poilievre point, because he said they're subsidized more than us. They're not. Per capita, people have run the numbers. Canadian dairy farmers, both directly and indirectly, are subsidized more than American ones. Maybe that person's exaggerating. Let's just say they're an American propagandist and it's not true. Okay. How about we open up the market, but we don't subsidize them. We just give a special dairy tax bracket that is half of the normal corporate rate, and that's half of the normal personal income rate. If you work for a dairy farm or you own a dairy farm, your income taxes will be halved. Fair enough. Because it's not like there's going to be a run on dairy farms just to take advantage of the taxes. You'd have to prove you're an actual dairy farmer. So it's pretty much abuse. It's abuse proof.
Yeah, what I'm saying, what you're saying makes too much sense. Wyatt.
I'm sorry.
I'm serious though. But again, we're getting back to this part of the conversation. We're getting back to the part of the conversation where it's like, no, actually, it's the messaging. So if we said, instead of reducing the tax, we give them a subsidy that would be equal to what you're saying, right? We give them a subsidy, and then we can eliminate that argument, and we can say, we no longer have an industry that raises the price of dairy for Canadian consumers, making it more expensive for people at the grocery store. And we also have competition from the United States.
Yeah,
it's an equal footing. It's an equal footing. We are subsidizing it the same as they're subsidizing it, with the hopes that eventually we can remove the subsidies.
Here's what you can do. I would say that, okay, we'll have experts analyze the American dairy industry and the Canadian one. If we have determined that they have a slight advantage because of subsidies or something, we'll put in place a proportional tariff that would reduce that advantage.
Oh, see, the tariff's the irritant, right? So this is a difficult thing,
Well,
especially in
I'm
the negotiation.
I am talking about the issue a little bit more in a vacuum. If we weren't dealing with trade negotiations,
No, I'm talking about it in the current contemporary
Okay,
issue.
well,
As we're
damn
at.
it, you're making me be realistic. But anyways, but regardless, like that's why I go back to the tax cut. We would just give a
Yes.
severe, big tax cut to Canadian producers because I just don't like the subsidies. Because
Of
subsidies,
course, I don't
breed
like subsidies
inefficiency.
either, and the goal would be to eliminate the subsidies. But but
my
in the
point is-
in,
my point is that the
sorry,
way
in the
they're subsidized-
interim,
the way-
get rid of the argument for having the dairy lobby in the first place. Because if the subsidies came in, then you can eliminate people's argumentation saying, well, they subsidize their milk, and that's why we have to have an embargo making things more expensive for the Canadian consumer.
Well, and that's why I guess what's really just a slight difference in our approach. And I think
Mhm.
we'd probably agree at the end of the day.
Oh, we
that,
totally agree
rather
at the
than
end of the day.
Giving them money, I would more so just give them such a big tax cut. They're not having to give money because I just think of that as extra bureaucracy rather than
Mhm.
just saying, okay, we just won't tax you for the first 3 years. Let's just say we'll eliminate taxes on dairy farms for 3 years while the markets integrate. So you actually can basically figure out how to make yourself more efficient in the first 3 years. You get a big taxation pad before you actually have to face them with taxation.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at it more from the optics angle, and because there's so much propaganda, it's really ridiculous at this point. It really is ridiculous. The dairy lobby should not exist. I mean, it should not be
did
a
you see that
carve out and
ridiculous-
monopoly for any sort of industry. But because there's so much propaganda, if you wanted to like actually get people to be on board with the idea of opening the market to make their lives easier, this is the hardest part about this whole thing. Is honestly, if the dairy lobby didn't exist, everyone's lives would be so much easier. There would be so many more products on the shelves that would be much more inexpensive, and they believe, oh, but it'll be full of BST growth hormones. It doesn't exist.
And by the way, I said in my own video, how about we say that they can sell into our market, but they just have to fit within Canada food guide standards. You like, because I know that American dairy can sometimes
Why
be
they already do
hyper-pasteurized.
this?
I find it makes no difference. But if people are that paranoid, okay, they can sell into our market, but they just can't hyper pasteurize. They can only pasteurize up to the point we allow. Okay, they would just start a different portion of their company that only does it for Canadian standards, and then they'd sell into us.
But then they wouldn't have to retool at all because they already do this. This is the amazing part.
I'm saying
So
that if there is any difference,
Of
if
course,
there's any
but-
imagined difference, if there's any real difference, we would pass something saying you have to follow our standards and then you can sell in, and that's fine. That's all I
Yes.
want.
Absolutely.
So
The
no one
idea,
feels like they're being taken advantage of. which
the
they're not.
amazing thing is, the more I learn about this, the more I realize that actually Canadians are consuming way more American dairy than they even know, because they're not aware, because it's not on the labels of the products that they're purchasing, because there are carve outs that are they're handed out in Ottawa to particular players in the marketplace that are allowed to have these quotas. So the quotas are basically tariff-free dairy coming into the United States, or from the United States into Canada, and sold in the consumer market that isn't labeled as American dairy.
Which is
So
so
this whole
stupid when you
fear
see the
marketing
video.
of like there's BST chemicals and blah blah blah. You're consuming it anyway, folks.
I'm taking my glasses off to signify how serious this point is, which makes it so stupid that we have videos of Canadian dairy farmers having to dump dairy,
Yes.
having to dump milk because they are over quota.
Yes.
Like, we are protectionist up until, hey, that Canadian farmer who doesn't have access to more quota, he's not allowed to produce that. It's like, what are we talking about? In Alberta, with 12% of the population and more than 12% of the really good farmland, we only produce 9% of the dairy because we're only allowed to produce 9% of the dairy.
Yes.
What are we doing?
That's crazy.
That's a fact that Premier Danielle Smith has said that I've never forgotten, because it's so ridiculous. Because if you're thinking of an ideal place for a dairy farm, I'm gonna say probably Alberta would have some
I would,
ideal
I would,
places
I
for
would
dairy
throw that
farms.
in there. Yeah, I've been to
Yeah.
Alberta. It looks pretty good for dairy farms.
Yeah, like we have dairy farms more north than Alberta in that like border region between Ontario and Quebec. That's like the main dairy area. That is that ideal? Like maybe it is, but we don't have a free market to prove it.
Would it be called that, or would it be called a dairy? Yeah. So, let's get into some of these chats. So we've got Bromsley came back at you with another one of these. He says, for $10. Thank you so much, Bromsley, by the way. He says, does Wyatt honestly believe Pierre is actually a savior and not more failed status quo? Does he believe Canada is not a failed nation and the CPC is any kind of hope for meaningful change?
Well, the thing is that it's at the end of the day, it's politics, and so often you're never going to get revolutionary change, but you can get some evolutionary change. And I'm always for getting as much of that change to be as fast and as substantial as possible. I get on the phone with MPs every day if I can. I get on the phone with people in charge of policy development, other people, presidents of the party, other influential people, because at the end of the day, you have the vehicles that you have. Now, if someone comes across with a better vehicle, I'll absolutely join it. I joined and I helped start One BC in British Columbia.
Yes, you did. You actually worked really hard at that.
Yeah, and the BC Conservatives need a kick in the butt in that province, and apparently internally they're now thinking of wanting to make a deal with us to merge us back in, which might not be that bad in theory, because in a certain sense the Conservatives actually have had to move quite right in order to try and cut off some of our support. The thing is, like, that was where the PPC actually had some utility for a while. Then it just kind of became very childish social media type content rather than anything substantial. The thing is, I'm always arguing for not saying, oh my goodness, it's a uniparty, so why talk to them? One, I kind of disagree with that. It's hyperbolic to the extreme. Is there issues like dairy where they're no different than the Liberals? Yeah, and it's foolish. And the thing is, like immigration, the Conservatives were the first party to finally, the PPC existed, fair enough. But like in terms of the major parties, the Conservatives finally figured out the immigration issue. They moved right on the immigration issue, and guess who they pulled? They pulled the Liberals over to the right, to the point where even Trudeau and then Carney had to start reducing immigration levels. Still not as much as I want, but I would just be arguing to people, why is it that worked, but you're saying that dairy wouldn't?
I think the wrong people are
absolutely do it. It's just that dairy is a less of a hot issue. But if on OAS and on dairy, we say to the Conservatives, do not focus on boomer voters to the detriment of younger voters. It's not that I don't think that older Canadians deserve a tax cut. That's why I argue for a uniform 20% tax cut. I'm saying don't serve interest groups before the general public. That's why on dairy, we can say stop focusing on that tiny vote when families making less than $70,000 a year are paying more than 1% of their income every year, just paying for the consequences of supply management. These things can move, but you just need consistent pressure over time. You need consistent pressure, good arguments. They don't respond to, you suck, you're the uniparty, because who the heck would, respond well to that?
Again, I'm not
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I'm not on board with that. And when it comes to
I get his point. I do get his point, and I do get his pessimism at times. But I'm saying turn that pessimism into pressure against the people that you believe aren't saying the right things.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, checking out is not the best idea. It's actually engaging, and I think the credit is given to the wrong people. So people usurp the credit that they think. For example, on the immigration issue, there's a lot of people from the Dominion Society or Second Sons that take credit for why the zeitgeist has changed.
Like a year late. That was the funny thing.
I don't think
a year after everyone was already shifting.
I don't think that's where the pressure came from. I think the pressure came from great journalists like Darshan Maharaja. He was fantastic at pointing out what was going on. There was a lot of pressure from even diaspora groups in Canada. There was pressure from, people that are not crazy lunatics that were talking to their constituents, and they were talking to their MPs and things like that. So I think the pressure came from other areas. And yeah, I mean, just people want to take credit for all kinds of stuff. But yeah, when it comes to the dairy lobby, I think that needs to be a shift. And this is something where I think that Pierre Poilievre and his team, they're way behind the curve on the cultural issue. You know, Andrew Breitbart, he put it very eloquently, pointed it out while he was still with us. He said that politics is downstream from culture. Culture is where you need to be. This is where you need to be working on things and pushing the message forward. And I feel like the Conservative Party, they really they govern by polling. They govern by polling and you know, some of these like internal what do they call them, focus groups, things like that, instead of actually
it's sometimes even more specific than that. If you're a conservative advisor or a media guy or something like that, and you were originally the one pushing some of these ideas that weren't great, what are you going to walk into Poilievre or whoever the leader's office is and say, by the way, I've been wrong about everything for the past 2 years? That's the problem that you end up having. People are incentivized
why do they keep getting employed then?
It's their messaging.
But why do they keep getting employed? I mean, like obviously, like everybody gives crap to Jenny Byrne because she was on the out, but there are a lot of people in today that are part of the apparatus that have been wrong for so damn long, and they're still wrong. They're still wrong.
Yeah.
And there's people that are trying to take the helm at this point. And they're wrong. They've been wrong for a very long time. What's it? Corey Tonight, he had his little speech about Pierre with his motorcycle jacket on. I can't remember what he said. It was
that guy, he comes across like a Zoolander character or something like that. He's always wearing some like different, like weird outfit. But like the funny thing with Corey Tonight is if he was running the 25 campaign, he would have also lost.
He would have lost, yes.
He was basically advising, be more like the liberals, be more anti-Trump. And it's like the conservatives are not going to win by trying to be the liberals. That's not, he hangs his hat on the fact that, well, Doug Ford won under me 3 times in a row. It's like, because Doug Ford doesn't have any opponents.
So the audience is not going to understand what we're talking about. So I'm going to play this clip. And at the same time, I'm going to go run and grab another drink. So I'll be right back while this clip plays. But everybody needs to hear this to understand. So this is Corey Tonight. He was the advisor to Doug Ford in his last election. And he's a bit of a character that thinks he's a know-it-all.
You know, is sort of a semi-professional asshole. But, you know, the only people who aren't very concerned about losing their seat in that caucus right now probably have some form of brain injury. But in fairness,
I can guess which ones.
Yeah, well, there's always a few, right? Yeah, look, it's grim. It's grim, and it relates to some of the things that we were talking about earlier. It's really a leadership question, and when you look at best prime minister, you know, 18% of people think that Poilievre would be the best prime minister, and it's like, I don't know, 56, 58, whatever it is for Carney. This is the crux of the problem, is a huge differential in the popularity of these two leaders. I think a lot of that is based on, you know, we're in serious times, and Poilievre isn't a serious person. Poilievre is conservative Justin Trudeau, and he compares very well to Justin Trudeau. He's sort of never had a real job, you know, probably unemployable outside of politics. You know, there's like a lot of, you know, but very good at the soundbite, and you know, is sort of a semi-professional asshole. But
what would it take to go full pro?
No, I think he's at least a full-time.
He's
asshole.
trying. Look,
he may not be professional, but he's highly successful.
He's practiced.
Certainly putting in the hours.
But this is the thing with politics. It's, you know, leadership is always a comparative endeavor, and it's, you know, Poilievre versus Trudeau worked for Poilievre.
Yeah.
But it wasn't ever a love affair with Poilievre. It was a comparison between these two people. And now you're seeing a different comparison. The world has shifted. The issue sets have shifted. It's gone from, you know, affordability and a lot of, like, I'd call them, you know, inward looking domestic economic issues to something that is much more existential, which is much more serious, more international. Skippy's resume doesn't hold up to the former, two-time central banker.
So yeah, that's Corey Tonight. My commentary on this was this is total cringe. When did Corey Tonight become the Canadian cheap knockoff version of Milo Yiannopoulos? Nice motorcycle jacket, brah. So
the worst part of that clip is just like, oh goodness, they almost had a joke because like the audience apparently would laugh at like an injured child or something like that. Like there's that audience is desperate for a laugh apparently, and they were like walking around with the joke landmine detector, and like he said something about how oh he's a semi-professional a-hole, and everyone on the panel apparently had to like throw in their own version of the same stupid joke, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is why none of you are paid to be funny. Like that's the one thing that bothers me.
Well, the one thing that caught my eye during this whole thing, though, was that Corey Tonight, as he talks, he can't look people in the eyes. Like he looks at the floor anytime he's talking, and he only looks up at people when he's delivering a punchline. I mean, this is why I was actually like comparing him to Milo Yiannopoulos, because that same behavior that Milo Yiannopoulos does. He's just essentially just conniving person.
Yeah, actually, I didn't understand why he said Milo Yiannopoulos there for a second, but Milo kind of has that weird way of talking, looks off and kind of like walking around and like, well,
yeah, he won't look you in the eyes. Yeah, he won't look you in the eyes. It's a sign. So that's a sign of distrust. Something
he just hates Pierre Poilievre, and that's it. And you can like or dislike Pierre Poilievre, but like the thing is, Corey Tonight, he likes him or dislikes him for extremely arbitrary reasons.
Basically, well, I think he dislikes him for it's arbitrary reasons, but they're very good reasons for him. He's looking for a political career in the next run of whatever. It looks like mutinies happening in the Conservative Party, and if there was a leadership challenge to Pierre Poilievre, which I think personally, I think that Pierre shit the bed. He shit the bed in the last election. He came in with a 40-point lead. He could have gone somewhere with it, but he then took the safe route of let me just try to be like the Liberals and then shit the bed.
Well, they assumed that there was carrying momentum from when Trudeau was still prime minister, and people already planned on voting Conservative a year ago, and let's just hope that that's true. And it's like, man, I know a lot of those polls are hot garbage from the election. Like ECOS, everyone was saying, oh, ECOS was on to something when they showed the Liberals leading first out of all the pollsters. I'm like, yeah, but they had them leading by 18 points. Did the Liberals win by 18 points? Like,
no, they did not. Terrible poll. No, they did not.
At the same time, it's like the Conservatives were just assuming, oh, don't listen to the polls. All the polls are fake. We're still leading like we were back in November. Maybe not as much, but we'll still win. And it's like, you got to win. You got to run an election on a big issue. And the Conservatives, the carbon tax wasn't even exactly that big of an issue. But the thing is that the Liberals took the big issue away from them, and they basically resulted in no issue. They were like arguing, well, Carney technically he turned the carbon tax down to zero, but he hasn't legislated it gone. It's like, oh,
again, it's a technical issue.
It's materially the same.
That's the problem.
And that was the problem. They assumed that they were inherently popular.
So what I'm getting at, though, is that the worst case scenario for Canada is that Poilievre is ousted and replaced with someone worse. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm saying that Pierre was in a perfect position to win. Shit the bed. He's done a lot of things that I disagree with and I didn't like. When he went on Joe Rogan, it was a perfect opportunity to rail against. He talked about UFC and shifted onto another topic instead of doing that. He had a perfect opportunity to talk about a number of things. Alberta separation, he said that'll never happen, and then shifted on to UFC and kettlebells and didn't want to talk about it. This seems to be the approach that Pierre has. And that's shitty, and I don't like that about him. But, he still has a lot of fans. And, I want to see conservatism actually happen in... One second. I want to see conservatism happen in Canada. I do want that to happen. do I think that it'll happen if he's ousted and he's replaced with freaking Kenny or Doug Ford? No, I think that's the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to Canada.
Yeah.
If he's replaced with somebody like Jamil Javani, actually, that would be I'd be a huge fan of that because I actually really like Jamil.
Well,
I don't know if that'll happen.
Like for leadership. If Polyev is forced out, I'll name who I like. But I would say that the thing with Polyev, and I've said this before, I'm not sure if I've said in a video. I think I have, but I've said it to lots of people on the phone. Right now, the Conservative Party is at risk of learning a lesson. And if they swap leaders, they will not learn a lesson because the new leader will come in and say, all the problems are solved because how do I know? I'm the leader now. And nobody ever actually wants to learn a lesson and become more conservative and democratize the party properly. People
they'll go more liberal, and that's exactly where they'll go.
The only way it will ever happen. Yes, there are some leaders out there who maybe would do it, but my point is right now, we are actually at risk of the Conservative Party fixing itself because Polyev might have to do it to stay as the leader by saying, you know what, I messed up on these things, so I'm going to fix them, rather than getting dumped and then Kenny or Leo Housakis or Mark Mulrooney or Doug Ford come in and say, no, you know the problems are fixed. How do you know? Because I'm now the leader and we got rid of the old regime and the new regime's in, and that means it's all okay. And everyone will forget about all the problems they had once the new leader's in, because that's usually a good way of keeping the pressure off.
See, here's the problem. Pierre never stops doing one thing. He always is behind the curve on everything. He'll do the wrong thing. It's so funny because this is what he accused Americans of in his election speech when it first kicked off. Was he said that Americans, it was a quote from Churchill, that Americans will do everything they can in their power until they have to do the right thing. And here's the truth of it. Pierre will do everything he can to avoid doing the conservative thing before he actually comes across and does the conservative thing. Right? He'll try to appease the liberals until it becomes too much of a burden on the base to actually, okay, I have to address this. And then people rah as soon as he does it. Why didn't he, if he would just immediately take that conservative position every time, people would just be like blown away by the guy.
I think they need to clean house more with the advisors, because the problem is, even though I think that he needs to be taking, like you're saying, he needs to be jumping ahead of the curve or be with the curve in taking the conservative position. Maybe that's his instinct, maybe it's not, but the advisors are definitely not helping, because they're the first people to say, that's risky. That presents risk. And all we do in life is only basically risk manage. A lot of these people are not campaign managers. They're not campaign advisors. They're risk advisors and they're risk managers. They don't know what they're doing. But the problem with Polyev sometimes...
But there's no appetite for risk in Canada, and that's the problem. There is no appetite for risk.
Yeah. The problem with Polyev sometimes, from knowing people around him, is he trusts people he's known for a while. And the people he's known for a while have survived by being pablum, by saying nothing,
by being shitty.
By having no opinions about anything. And that's the problem, is that I actually think instinctually Polyev is a far bigger risk taker than people think, which is why he was more flamboyantly conservative in the 22 leadership race than he ended up being as leader, because those were it's the old joke that the campaign staff are your weirdo eccentrics. And then once you actually get into office, your professional staffers tend to be very buttoned down and boring. And I think he almost needs to take the people who helped him win the leadership race and bring them back into his actual day-to-day office management. And
that might be a good take. I want to skip the queue, and I'll get back to some of the other chats that have come in. But Jasmine Lane jumped in with $27.99 super chat. Thank you so much for you. $30, Jasmine. I really appreciate that. Hardworking lady. And she says, fabulous commentary, my friends. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Chick-fil-A again.
Going to Chick-fil-A. What?
You can get now. She's paid for another round at Chick-fil-A for Clyde.
Absolutely, for the whole family, dude.
Yeah,
Chick-fil-A is cheap here. As long as that's not 27K.
Finish one thing on the Polyev thing.
Yes.
If Polyev goes out as leader, and for some reason, and he doesn't run again for leader, the person I'd probably then choose at that point, because I know you've mentioned Jamil. I actually
Yes.
would say the best person at the moment who's the best balance of aggressive but also very marketable would be Shavloy Majumdar, who's currently the Canada-U.S. trade critic.
I would have to look into that individual. Yeah,
You've met him before.
I've met him.
He was at the Canada-India conference. He was the MP who was there.
Oh, yes, I remember him.
Watch him on CBC. He's very good. Yeah, most people just call him Shuv.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into that. I'm a big fan of Jamil, though.
Mhm.
I do like. I like his. What do you say? I like. Like from Team America, you have balls. I like balls. Yeah, he's got balls, and that's what conservatives need in Canada. Conservatives, they're absolutely terrified of being conservative in public, and that needs to change. And the culture needs to change with it. Conservatives need to come out and be unabashedly conservative. Liberals, this is the thing that liberals do all the time. They talk about, like, everything in their lives is politics. They talk about their politics all the time. It's intertwined in culture and everything they do. And then as soon as you talk about your politics, they're like, wait, that's rude. Just keep your politics out of stuff. You're like, what are you talking about? Everything you do is politics. Everything you do, you push everything on us. And the second I push back for 1 second, that's the ploy. The ploy is to push back and tell people to shut up, conservatives. Don't have an opinion. That's inappropriate. No, what's inappropriate is the fact that we're not allowed to have opinions, and we need to push that out there. We need to make it so liberals look at conservatives and say, okay, they're a force to be reckoned with, and that's what's happening in the United States, not happening in Canada, and I would like to see that happen in Canada. Let's get to some of these chats. We've got Myron Enns, member for 11 months. He says, it's not just dairy. No, it's not just dairy. There's a bunch of different industries.
But the wheat board is a great roadmap to how you can get rid of it and how they got rid of the wheat board.
Great point. We've got Judy Armstrong for 5 joules. Treat. Thank you so much on the mobile app, given the joules. That's the newest thing out there. We've got Myron Enns again with another $20. Thank you so much. He says, you can add poultry, both eggs and meat, beef and grain. All of agriculture is controlled by a government overwatch. Yeah, we should just take Mao out of the country. Take Mao out of our economy. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't understand this. Do you get it? Like, I don't get it. Why is it that people keep there's this gravitas towards more and more government control, as if like that'll help people, when all through
it's honestly just anti-Americanism. People just I like have this idea that we're not crazy unstrung capitalists. We're controlled Canadian managers. I think people can be very easily sold on the idea in this country that government is here to make it better.
That just says bureaucracy to me.
Yeah.
You know, the British have a different way of dealing with the crappy bureaucracy they got. Douglas Adams is a great writer. He wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Right? And have you read the book? Have you watched any of the movies? Any of that stuff? Okay, so he did science fiction in a different way, and I know you'll appreciate this. So the way he did science fiction, he did it in a way that kind of went with contemporary scientific understanding, evolutionary biology, all that kind of stuff. So the villains of the tale are not actually villains outright because they're just evil for no reason. So he gives a reason behind their crappiness and why they're shitty, because the whole premise of the story is Earth's going to be destroyed because there's an intergalactic highway being built and Earth's in the way, so it needs to be destroyed. So the main character flees and hitchhikes to try to make this not happen. And so these creatures that are the bad guys, they're bad guys because they're bureaucratic and they're just doing the things mindlessly and just doing it. Well, then he goes to the planet where they were evolved from, and it turns out they evolved alongside another animal that can sense free will. And anytime it senses free will, it pops out of the sand, it smacks you in the nose. And so these other creatures, they evolved hyper intelligence, but without free will, because anytime they had that, they would get smacked in the nose. So these big flat noses, but they're shitty bureaucrats. And that's just how they're the whole thing. It's clever, and that's the whole thing. I'm not sure what point I was getting to, but it's a reflection.
Well,
of
you were
our
comparing that to
culture.
Canada, how everyone in this country has been probably conditioned so much with
Yes.
regulations and bureaucracy that there's something just inherently good about it because you've grown up constantly people telling you that it's good.
That's it. You're just smacked in that nose all the time. Like anytime you have free will, that thing
Well,
pops
we
out
have
of the
that
sand and
stupid
whacks you.
like Canada's here for peace, order, and good government. And I think people assume good government means good application of some government power here and there, whereas really that should mean government shutting the heck up as often as possible.
Exactly. Like I really appreciate Milton Friedman on this one. He says what government ought to be, like the fundamental roles of what government is. Let me I'm actually gonna pop this up because this is very important that people understand this. So I just so happen to have watched this recently, and it's beautiful. It's super eloquent and gets right to the point.
Very simple functions. Number one, to defending the country against foreign enemies. I have tried for a long time to see how to make national defense a private enterprise, and I have never succeeded. It's easy to see how to privatize schooling, but I don't know how to privatize national defense. So I'm reconciled to the fact that we're going to have to pay twice as much as we should have to pay in order to get an effective national defense, because anything government does, on the average, there's some things that are more, some less. On the average, anything government does costs twice as much as if it were being done by private enterprise. So one function of government is to protect the country against foreign enemies, national defense. A second function of government, and one which it performs very, very badly, is to protect the individual citizen against abuse and coercion by other citizens, to keep you from being hit over the head, mugged on the street, your house broken into, and so on. And I believe that the government performs that function very ineffectively because it's doing so many things it has no business doing. The third function of government, a very important function, is to define the rules of the game we play. What's private property? If an airplane flies 10,000 feet over your house, is he violating your private property? If he flies 10 feet over your house, is he violating your private property? There's nothing natural about where the line should be drawn. So we have to have some mechanism for making the rules about that, and that is an appropriate government function. And fourth, it's appropriate for government to provide a mechanism for adjudicating disputes about the meaning of those rules, a judicial system. Those are the four essential functions of government, in my opinion, and those are the only functions that are essential. The government.
That's exactly it. I agree with that.
His Free to Choose series is really good for anyone who hasn't watched it yet.
So, I mean, today he would be seen as an anarchist because he believed that the government should have only limited roles, right? And it's only a separation, a very thin separation between that and anarchism, the idea of no government control. But I happen to believe this. That and actually the founding fathers believed this as well. So the people who established the Constitution of the United States, they were very fervent on this idea that the government should be extremely limited in what it is that they do, allow private enterprise to function. And when it did, it became the biggest economic boom the world has ever seen. We're all discussing right now, how do we get better economics? How do we foster a system where we can all survive in this world and prosper the best that we can? And we've gone so far from these ideas into, protectionism and trade and trade barriers and restrictions. And of course, we have to do this when we communicate across borders, because one country will restrict trade and allow all kinds of trade to go the other way, and we have to negotiate with each other to make this happen. But at the end of the day, the government should really be out of the picture, except for the arbitration sort of, and obviously, ultimately, if somebody tries to invade you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where I'm at with that. Back to some of these super chats. Waniska for 5 says, Trump was talking about buying tariff-free ground beef tonight. Wait, what? Trump was talking about buying tariff-free ground beef tonight at the SC rally. Wonder if that's part of the part of Carney's deal. I haven't heard anything about this, probably because we were streaming at the same time that it happened.
That kind of makes sense, because so much of it sounds like basically we've completely eliminated tariffs. At the same time, we've allowed them to keep a bunch of their own tariffs.
So I don't know if it's a bunch of their own tariffs as much as it is the plan to have tariffs, blanket tariffs over countries, right? So all these other countries that have come to the table have accepted, okay, we'll pay a set tariff to enter the United States if we have our companies send things over to the United States, but you can avoid the tariff by moving your company into the United States. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's the crux of the
because obviously there's a massive incentive now to leave Canada, because
yes.
Well, why be in the country where you had to pay, or companies had to pay tariffs to bring your products in, rather than just be in the country, build it there, and then have to pay nothing?
Yeah, but inversely, that was the perverse incentive to come into Canada in the first place. So Canada's only, claim to fame was the fact that they, for the longest time in Canada, had zero barrier to entry into the U.S. market, where there was barriers in other countries to a certain degree, that they can move their manufacturing to Canada, have cheaper what have you, and then go into the United States. And Canada would actually manipulate the dollar to have it at lower than the US dollar just for that purpose, so that it would entice people to come to Canada, pay lower amounts for the labor, services, and then send the products into the United States.
And by the way, Carney's too daft at this point to realize, hey, know how we could compensate for this? Lowering our own taxes, so that companies save the money domestically, so the tariffs don't really affect them that much compared to what they currently do right now. But by the way, you should do Bromsley's other super chat, because apparently he wants you to read the one where he calls me an a-hole or whatever.
Getting there. Bromsley for 10 says, so let's say Pierre is a savior in 5 years and the libs get in and burns us again. Rip it all down and build something for the people, by the people. Keep Clyde the gem, throw away the assholes like Wyatt. I think he's trying to say Wyatt, because S and W are right there.
The thing is, like, he's acting like I somehow argued that Pierre Poilievre is a savior. I didn't. I just acted like this is real life with fallible individuals, and sometimes you don't end up with the perfect person. How do you operate when you don't have the perfect person in place? Like, is he arguing you shouldn't try because the other side can always win? Like that's just kind of true everywhere.
So I tend not to look at politicians as saviors, and like people,
and they're not. None of them are.
So I think it was Alex Zoltan who started this whole like Trump savior syndrome to combat the Trump derangement syndrome thing. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, the shirts are available on the merch store, and the link is in the description down below. Get your Trump derangement, find a cure shirt. We have those available for everybody. But yeah, since it came up, I have to plug. But yeah, so this idea of Trump savior syndrome, I don't buy that. Some people do look for saviors in politicians. I would avoid that at all costs. Like, if you can, don't look at politicians as somebody who can save you. Look at politicians as people who can represent you. And if if you can't look at it that way, you know, it's
And politicians live in the same flawed smelly meat world that we all live in. You just have to realize that there's never ever going to be someone like, oh, you care about that issue? Well, let's walk through let's walk through the halls of power and have no one obstruct us the entire time, and we'll just pass that bill that you want. It's like it's always going to take some pressure, and that's not saying it's okay that it sucks. You know, it's okay that it sucks sometimes. Don't complain. It's saying complain in the ways where it's going to make a difference, rather than going off into the social media echo chamber where nobody cares.
Yeah, my complaint with Pierre Poilievre is that it takes way too much pressure from his base for him to have conservative opinions. He defaults to the liberal sensibility, and it's when the base gets really angry and there's a big outcrying on social media that he takes a marginally conservative position on things. And that is, I think that's a valid complaint.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that he's scared of the short-term criticism, when all that is basically the left trying to hammer you back into position so you don't make winning moves.
Yes, and that would explain his loss in the last election. Absolutely. We got Myron Ends for 10 says, betting $1 he didn't ride a motorcycle to the show, much less able to ride one. Apparently that motorcycle jacket that Corey Tonight was wearing is like a $10,000 Gucci motorcycle jacket.
Oh, did you see the video where he's wearing like the French chapeau? The little like he was wearing that black what is it?
When you say French chapeau, it's like French and then the French word for hat. That's hilarious.
I didn't say hat chapeau, so I'm not doubling up on the word. But he was wearing like the little like what is it called? Beret. He's wearing like the little beret with a little tip on the top of it, and then and then he got mercilessly mocked, including by yours truly. And like then the next time he went on that same podcast, he was wearing like a Peter Pan or like, you know, Robin Hood type hat, and he was trying to lean into like, oh hey, I'm wearing another ridiculous hat. I'm like, dude, you thought you were cool in the other hat. Now you're wearing this hat.
He probably thought he was cool.
Like, yeah.
That's really funny. That is really funny. Got one from Peter from Edmonton for $2. He says, Jammin! So this is a joke because I had Jasmine on the show the other week, and I didn't know this whole like what is it, the jewels on YouTube. If you get so many jewels, it comes up as Jammin'. And I thought somebody just misspelled Jasmine because he was on the show. And I was like, oh, it's funny. You sound like somebody with a speech impediment saying hi to you.
That feels like a good like, stream. That feels like a good streaming name for Jasmine Lane. Every time she's doing a stream, she can just call it Jam. We're here at Jammin' Lane.
Oh, I said it sounded like a deaf person trying to say
Jammin' Lane.
Oh God, you did it. I'm glad you did it. So even when I texted her today to say hey, I said, hey, Jammin'. And she didn't even catch it. She just went along with it. And now she's gonna look, if she's watching this, she's gonna go back and look at her text and crack up. It's hilarious. So yeah, that's gonna be a running joke for a while now. Anyway, we got Fito Bedit. No, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce that. I don't know what the screen name is there.
Hey, no. Clyde, you son of a gun. I'm gonna say it properly. Fido Batide, I9Y. Fido Batide. Okay. It's just right there. You just say it, man. Come on.
Yeah, but what if it's like fit to be tied?
Yeah. Oh, damn it. You're right. Shut up.
So like when you're just like reading through these real quick, it's horrible. So yeah, for 100 joules, thank you so much for the high five. Really appreciate that. And then we've got Myron Ends for $20. Thank you. Again, I really appreciate that. It says, I'm not scared of being conservative. I have relatives that have stopped talking to me because apparently being conservative makes me angry. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. They freak out. They need emotional support on the fact that they don't like their ideas being challenged, and that's where things have gone crazy. Is that this whole gaslighting in society that you're not allowed to challenge left-wing ideas because they get freaked out.
This is why conservative party leaders, no matter who it is, always have lower approval ratings on average than liberal party leaders, because liberals have been convinced that conservative means something's wrong with that person and they're evil, where we by default disagree with them but don't assume they're a bad person. We just think that they have silly ideas. That's in part why Carney and for Trudeau for a while had quite high approval ratings, despite the fact that not that many people actually voted for them. It's because conservatives are nice enough to assume Carney's boring and kind of incompetent, but probably, you'd probably let him babysit your kids for a couple hours and he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, no, nowhere near my kids. Myron Ensford out of 10 says, there are no perfect people. Even if Pierre got in tomorrow, he has almost 12 years of steaming dog poop in a bag to get rid of before things really move forward. See the Harper era. Yeah, well, people elect conservatives to fix shit, and then they never actually do. But here's the thing. In America, that's a big difference. So here in America, that's been the case too, until Donald Trump came to the scene. And now things are changing. Things are getting done. They're getting done fast. And people are realizing, holy crap.
And
Maybe this is a better play.
Part of the problem is sometimes the voters, where they elect someone and then they're like, they're elected, now I can go comatose for 4 years. It's like, no, you need to be constantly putting pressure on the people you elected into a new government to do those things, or else they're gonna kind of vibe with you. If you're kind of like, well, let's let them sit over there and we'll hope they do something good, they're also going to have that complacent attitude as well. Not that it's like the voters' fault and the conservatives, politicians, if they get in, shouldn't follow through. Obviously, they should. I'm just saying you can't be shocked that if you become complacent, they're going to let themselves slip into complacency as well.
They'll fall to the left. They always do, as they always do. Winiska for $2 saying you're better than nothing, Clyde. So this is an ongoing gag, and this is the best compliment I get from my fans. Is you're better than nothing. I love it. Actually, it's funny, but I'll lean on that one. And I think, oh wow, we got more. How do you say this one?
Chamomile Tea 5424. Got it, you son of a gun. I got it faster than you. That means I get your channel.
Oh, sure. I mean, if that was the case, I mean, dyslexia would just kill me to everybody. So for $10, chamomile tea 25424. Thank you so much for the $10. Says you young men give me hope. Great collab, and we all love Jammin' Lane. It's catching on, Jammin' Lane. You know I'm gonna do that. I'm so doing that next time I meet her in person.
Next time you have her on, it has to say featuring Jammin'. It doesn't and just refuse to correct it. Say it's not wrong. It's not wrong, and it's spelled wrong.
We gotta do that at the next convention that we're all together at. You and I both together. We'll be like, "Hey, Jammin'! Oh man, that's hilarious. All right, so we appreciate that one, Chamomile Tea. Another one from K Bagta for $2.79. No chat, but just sorry, I'm still laughing from the last one. Oh, thank you so much for the $2.79. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way. And we're definitely put it to good use. Really appreciate it. Wyatt Claypool, it's been a slice. It's been fantastic. Let's do this again soon. And I know you're always up for it. You're always game. I'll jump on your channel sometime. You do live streams, don't you?
I do. Here's actually, this is something I was actually thinking of halfway through the stream. I was like, I don't have enough people on. Do you know why I don't have enough people on? Because I have like this kind of informal deal that anyone who comes on my channel and does a stream with me, I just give them half the super chat money. And it's not because I'm greedy. It's just because I usually don't do it. And so I've had Daniel Boardman on one time during election night where I think there was $3,000 and I just gave him $1,500 after because I'm like, well, it's what I said. So I've had other people on where I'm just like, what amount do we do? I calculate. I'm like, here you go. Afterwards.
Wow, that's amazing. Holy cow.
I should probably change that commitment because I think it's made me an isolationist by
usually it's just I'll go on your show so you can get a bunch on your show.
I don't know why.
We'll work it all out. We'll work it all out.
I'm bad at negotiating secretly. I like give away my shirt for no reason. And it's not even the person doesn't even care.
I'll make sure you get rewarded handsomely for this. Anyway, we got one last one. 2 Joules from Fit to be Tied.
We learned that
Fitted Obed or okay, whatever. We're gonna go. Ladies and gents, thank you so much. If you are so inclined, head on over to the Discord. The link is in the description down below. We hang out after the live streams in the Discord on Friday nights. Grab yourself a couple of wobbly pops. We'll hang out, and it's a lot of fun. If you don't know what Discord is, it's another social media platform where people hang out. I've got nobody else to pass the stream off to. We passed it off to you the last time, so that's where we're going. Anyway, we'll see you all in the next one. Good night, everybody. Have a happy weekend, by the way.